This guy was a natural-born awakened, born with extraordinary power. But the first thing Kim Seo-jun had to do was pay off the debt his parents left behind. 9 long years passed, and he finally had enough savings to enroll in his Dream Hunter Academy. While scrolling online, an ad for the Supreme Academy suddenly appeared. It caught Kim Seo-jun's eye, making him stop in his tracks. What the hell is this? The video was full of over-the-top praises, hyping it up to the moon. He was speechless and scrolled to the next video, which was of the Monkey King twirling his staff. The sheer power and skill it displayed left Kim Seo-jun's jaw on the floor. Unfreaking believable! Out of curiosity, Kim Seo-jun clicked the registration button, and the number $40,000 popped up, exactly the amount of money he had. What a coincidence. Is this some kind of scam? Money really does make the world go round. He quickly noped out of the website and put on his helmet to head to his shift. But life is full of surprises, and all of Kim Seo-jun's hopes and dreams were about to vanish in the next few seconds. In an instant, the chain holding a monster's corpse accidentally snapped right above his head. Everything around Kim Seo-jun went dark, just like his future. His body was critically injured, requiring exactly $40,000 for surgery. The company shamelessly refused to cover the work-related accident. His bright future seemed to end right there in his hospital bed. To pay for the surgery, all he had left was the $3,000 Mr. Manchin had given him earlier. As he was in a daze, his phone buzzed softly. A notification about the Supreme Academy, with the registration fee now on sale for $3,000, left Kim Seo-jun completely stunned. With nothing left to lose, he decided to go for broke and give it a shot. The moment his finger touched the button, the envelope of money beside him started to vanish, giving him one hell of a fright. After successfully registering as a member, a tiny, glowing kid suddenly crawled out of his phone, announcing it would be his personal mentor. This made Kim Seo-jun wonder if his head had been injured too. Oh, just great. A mentor named Mentor. The little guy gleefully boasted that the God Odyssey was the first student he was in charge of, which made Kim Seo-jun highly skeptical. Seems like someone's even more messed up than he is right now. Mentor explained that the Supreme Academy is a place where the teachers are beings who always want to surpass the limits of their race. This startled Kim Seo-jun. So this is a school for transcendents, not hunters. What the hell is a hunter compared to that? Mentor quickly had Kim Seo-jun take an aptitude test to determine his current inclinations. Jun clicked through but didn't know what to choose for the second question, because he didn't currently possess any of those abilities. Sigh. Mentor let out a long breath. All right, I guess this little academy of mine will have to make do with you. With that, it threw 180 questions at him in one go, making Kim Seo-jun feel like he was about to die right there in his bed. After noticing his preferred fighting style was spearmanship, Mentor thought for a moment and decided to choose Eastern Key cultivation for him. Then it played a lecture from Professor Buddha. This left Kim Seo-jun completely stunned, questioning his own existence. What the actual hell? Following Mentor's advice, he immediately clicked on the Unwavering Mind of Steadfastness lecture. The image of Buddha and his teachings echoed in his ears. It made Kim Seo-jun instantly fall into a daze, as if he'd just taken 5 tabs of acid. After listening intently for a week, Kim Seo-jun's body had fully recovered, becoming incredibly solid, which astonished all the doctors. The power of the Dharma is truly something else. After listening, Kim Seo-jun felt like he'd reached freaking enlightenment, even though he had only completed 1.3% of the course. Feeling greedy, he decided to try Karen's lecture next, just to see what would happen. Karen is a centaur with the upper body of a human and the lower body of a horse. He was the teacher of most heroes in Greek mythology. He excitedly lay down, ready to listen and chill. Suddenly, the man roared, ordering him to get on his feet now! This startled Kim Seo-jun so much he almost fell out of bed. On his phone screen at that moment, in Sao. A notification for his daily personal quest popped up. Then, a whole slew of physical quests, much tougher than usual, appeared. They were way too much for Kim Seo-jun, and he sighed in frustration, about to skip them. But no matter how many times he tried to press the button, the screen stubbornly displayed the notification, forcing him to complete the quest. It made Kim Seo-jun feel like he was about to freaking wither away. And so, from a speck of dust, my life became this. The sad boy, Kim Seo-jun, had no choice but to click on Professor Buddha's lecture again. On the toolbar, a notification about the quest's deadline suddenly appeared. 83 days. Looks like he's screwed this time. Even though he really didn't want to, Kim Seo-jun had to train his body day after day with the tiny hope that he would get stronger. But even after studying everything for a whole week, his progress hadn't budged one bit. Oh well, it's been a while since I've exercised. Kim Seo-jun decided to take this as an excuse to train his body, and so he pushed himself to do 300 push-ups, panting heavily, feeling like his body was about to turn to jelly. Just as he was about to switch to another exercise, he noticed the screen only showed 81. So it only counts if you have the right form, huh? That's just evil. Kim Seo-jun wanted to cry but had no tears left, so he gritted his teeth and cursed silently while he trained. After toiling from morning till night, he finally met the quota. He was so exhausted he could taste blood, rolling around on the ground and cursing non-stop under the confused stares of the people around him. Are you kidding me? From now on, Kim Seo-jun has to do the exact same quest every single day. And he has to listen to lectures, too? Just thinking about it makes me want to pass out. A few days later, while going down to the hospital lobby to exercise outside, he ran into an old woman and greeted her. On the TV, there was a news report about an awakened who had swiftly dealt with a monster thanks to his own powerful abilities, which made the old lady very excited. While he was struggling to find a way to explain his current strength to her, the middle-aged man sitting next to them bluntly advised him that it would be best to just give up. This made Kim Seo-jun clench his fists in anger. He coldly stated that he would decide what to do with his own life. How about you worry about your own life first? He walked away, leaving the man's loud curses behind him. Who the hell was he to stand in the way of his dream? With the belief that he would become a professional hunter, Kim Seo-jun continued to train arduously day after day. Meanwhile, at the academy, an earth-shattering battle was unfolding between a female teacher and a giant, ferocious beast. After a tumultuous fight, her sharp sword strikes had already sliced it into pieces. Foul, fresh blood splattered across the grounds, mixing with the dust, turning the scene into one of utter desolation. After 2 hellish weeks, Kim Seo-jun was finally able to return home. He joyfully flopped onto his bed, but his mind was still preoccupied with the hunter examination next year. Then it suddenly hit him. He had already completed today's daily quest. The system had also unlocked the next lesson for him, making Kim Seo-jun shout with joy. Teacher Karen was a little surprised to see he had so persistently returned. With that, he picked up his staff to prepare for the next lesson. Sensation. The next morning, even though he really didn't want to, Kim Seo-jun had no choice but to shamelessly drag himself to the construction site to continue working because he was completely broke. And now, a new money-related problem had come up. He had to work to eat, but if he worked, he wouldn't have time to attend his lessons or do his daily quests. This problem was giving our wise Kim Seo-jun a real headache. During a rare break, Kim Seo-jun mentally reviewed the previous lesson on the 5 types of senses. Senses play a decisive role in battle: sight, hearing, smell, touch, and taste. Because these processes are too slow, Teacher Karen had taught him how to shorten them. That was by utilizing his intuition, his 6th sense. While he was lost in thought, a colleague from behind suddenly came up and poked him in the shoulder. But surprisingly, Kim Seo-jun managed to dodge it easily, as if he had eyes in the back of his head, leaving the man completely stunned. After that, Kim Seo-jun was even able to carry 3 monster parts with a total weight of 200 kilograms, and with no effort at all, despite just having recovered from his injuries. This made everyone at the construction site stare with wide-eyed astonishment. It was completely unreal. He felt some kind of power overflowing within him. Realizing that there wouldn't be much time left after he finished work, he decided to take the opportunity to do squats while carrying the goods. Unexpectedly, as soon as he did a few reps, the system automatically tripled the effect, stating, "The heavier the load, the greater the efficiency." When Kim Seo-jun understood this truth, he was over the moon. So that's how it worked. And so in the days that followed, he took every opportunity to train while working, basically killing 2 birds with 1 stone by earning money and saving time. The consequence of those energetic days was that his body was completely exhausted. He was exhausted, but the results were no less impressive. He had now finished all of his old lessons. He decided to look for other free courses to continue his training. After searching for a while, Kim Seo-jun unexpectedly found Professor Jiang Yu, a.k.a. the hegemon king of Western Chu. Jiang Yu was a military legend, and his outstanding physical abilities had gone viral everywhere. If it's free, I should sign up, he thought. But as soon as Kim Seo-jun clicked on it, he got an earful from Jiang Yu. It made him freeze completely. After listening to the man curse for a while, the system popped up a new quest. Swing a polearm-type weapon 5,000 times, which left him completely baffled. He just said a few words and the lesson's already over? And what's with this bizarre quest? It's true what they say. You get what you pay for. The next day, Park Seo-jun, the granddaughter of the Sword Saint, unexpectedly arrived at the construction site, where Kim Seo-jun worked to investigate the recent accident. Amidst the fearful whispers of the workers there, Kim Seo-jun felt a chill run down his spine when he heard the 2 words, Sword Saint, Park Min-chun. This was because 100 years ago, he was an active awakened being when the concept of gates first appeared. Unlike the systematic knowledge that awakened beings have now, the monsters of that era were far more ferocious and flooded the streets. It was a time when humanity's very survival was not guaranteed, and Park Min-jun was an awakened who had awakened in such a world. He was also one of the people who rebuilt this world's civilization, a savior hero of the world. Time flows like water, and though he is old now, he remains a powerful force on this planet. This filled Kim Seo-jun with immense admiration. As he thought this, he put even more effort into carrying the goods, and his awkward posture caught the attention of Park Seo-jun. He was, as always, ceaselessly using the monster carcasses to train his body. While he was chatting with a colleague, one of the monster corpses suddenly twitched and lunged. It lunged at the other man with lightning speed, leaving both of them unable to react in time. Flashing back a few minutes earlier, Park Seo-joon, exhausted from being surrounded by the workers, had quickly hidden in a dark corner. She thought to herself that she really wasn't cut out to be the director of this place. Overhearing whispers and gossip about her abilities only reaching B rank, she couldn't help but feel disheartened, especially because the Star Sword was a hero revered by all. But to her, that name was just a heavy title that clung to her like a chain. Even though Park Seo-joon had been trained to be a hunter by her grandfather ever since she could walk, the wall named Star Sword was still too high. She had no ability to overcome it. As someone constantly compared to her incredibly talented grandfather, her original dream had been to become a teacher. But that dream was crushed by her talented grandfather. Her compromise was to teach at a hunter academy, but after news broke that the Star Sword wouldn't be making an appearance at the academy she founded, all the students lost interest and left. They hadn't enrolled for her, but for the Star Sword. Her greatest desire was to find just one suitable student. While lost in thought, a sudden commotion around her signaled that a monster had appeared, making her jump in surprise. Kim Seo-joon and the other man were now surrounded by the ferocious beast. He didn't know what to do other than scream helplessly at the sight of someone he cared about facing certain death. He panicked, his hair standing on end as he realized that a normal person could never be stronger than a monster. That was true even for awakened beings who couldn't use mana, to say nothing of the fact that this was a 4-star monster. Even professional hunters would have a hard time taking it down. If he waited for Park Seo-joon, it would be too late. That man was just a few seconds away from ending up right in its mouth. Kim Seo-joon trembled. After a moment's hesitation, he decided to risk it all and charged in for a life-or-death battle. He thrashed wildly, creating a shield to help the man escape. In a flash, he was the only one left in the area with the ferocious monster. Kim Seo-joon tried to reassure himself. He had to hold out until the professional hunters got here. But that was easier said than done. His body was still shaking uncontrollably with fear. In his panic, the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha suddenly echoed in his mind, helping his thoughts become as calm and peaceful as still water. His fear and trembling heart were gradually suppressed, giving him the courage to face the beast as it swung its arm and charged. He realized that if he moved, after thinking about how to react, it would be too late. Kim Seo-joon had to act on instinct. Just like that, he easily dodged each solid punch. Then, he channeled the mountain-uprooting skill of Xiang Yu. He aimed right for its weak spot and brought down the pipe in his hand with all his might. In that moment, it flashed brightly. Less than a second later, a deafening, earth-shattering explosion rang out. Park Seo-joon heard the commotion and rushed over. Vaguely visible through the cloud of dust was the charismatic figure of Kim Seo-joon next to the bloody corpse of the monster. "It seems you've successfully applied the professor's lectures. That's my boy. What the hell just happened here?" Park Seo-joon couldn't believe it, not even in her wildest dreams. A single person, not even a hunter without any decent weapon, could do something like this with just a steel pipe like Kim Seo-joon. In contrast to the confusion she was feeling, Kim Seo-joon hurriedly walked past her because right now, he was extremely worried about his colleague. Park Seo-joon quietly observed the noisy, bustling scene of Kim Seo-joon talking with the people around him. Suddenly, she blurted out, "I found him, the right cadet." In the quiet yet thoughtful atmosphere, the workday came to an end. In the fading twilight, with the foreman's stern warning not to tell anyone what had just happened, Kim Seo-joon glanced at his phone to check something, and was startled to see the lecture progress rate. He never expected it to have increased by this much. He guessed it was probably because he'd had a realization after taking down that beast this afternoon. It seemed the best way to increase the lecture progress rate was to apply what he learned in real combat. But the problem was that if he couldn't join a hunter academy and get a temporary license, he wouldn't be able to clear dungeons. It seemed financial problems were once again weighing heavily on Kim Seo-joon's shoulders. He needed to save up money and apply. As he was racking his brain, Park Seo-joon suddenly appeared from behind him at some point and now wanted to talk to him. The moment he saw her, Kim Seo-joon immediately recognized her as the Sword Saint's granddaughter and couldn't help but wonder why someone like her would want to talk to him. Park Seo-joon didn't hesitate and got straight to the point. She wanted to invite him to meet her grandfather. But unfortunately for her, contrary to her expectations, Kim Seo-joon flatly refused and walked away, leaving her completely flustered. A 31-year-old Park Seo-joon was experiencing something she had never experienced before, so she was a bit flustered. Kim Seo-joon spoke coldly. "I simply can't believe in an academy like yours that has no cadets." Just hearing about it sounds like bullshit. Park Seo-joon was speechless, not knowing how to explain it to him. After seeing him perform those strange exercises, and even while he was in a weakened state, a fairly serious one at that, he could still slice that 4-star monster in half. She felt it was clear he was trying to become a hunter, nothing more. She hurriedly ran after him, promising him the equipment and facilities there, but he still stubbornly refused. Backed into a corner, Park Seo-joon played her final card, her grandfather. She then said she would ask her grandfather to teach him the sword. This made Kim Seo-joon pause for a moment, but his answer was still no. This made her so incredibly angry. To see him refuse an offer to learn from the Sword Saint, something every professional hunter wanted. Her desire to have him grew stronger and stronger. Determined not to let him get away so easily, Park Seo-joon laid everything out, saying she would help him get affiliated with her academy. She would provide a private place for training, and most importantly, she would waive his tuition fees. Hearing this, Kim Seo-jun was tempted, but being cautious, he wondered what he would have to do for her in return. Because in this world, there's no such thing as a free lunch. What she really wanted was for him to participate in as many other competitions as possible under her academy's name before he passed the professional hunter exams, so that others would find out about them. Kim Seo-jun was gradually starting to waver at Park Seo-jun's attractive offer. Even though she could solve all his problems in one go, he couldn't understand why she would go to such lengths, just to get him to join. In the dazzling afternoon sun, Park Seo-jun said in a low voice that it was because she had seen his potential. Her determined expression didn't seem so bad to Kim Seo-jun. The two of them happily shook hands. Their goal might have seemed like one and the same, but deep down, their relationship was one of mutual exploitation. The next day, just as Kim Seo-jun predicted, he got the news that the construction team leader had been fired because he himself had asked Park Seo-jun to take care of it yesterday. This made everyone ecstatic. Today, Kim Seo-jun's joy was multiplied, as it was his first day at the Hunter Academy. As soon as he arrived at the gate, Park Seo-jun was already waiting there to hand him his certificate. Kim Seo-jun dazedly accepted it. He felt that even though he hadn't become a professional hunter yet, this was the first step on his journey to achieve his dream. Before beginning his training, Kim Seo-jun, following Park Seo-jun's instructions, had to first choose a weapon to prepare to enter the dungeon she had already set up. In a flash, he had chosen one for himself and followed her into this pitch-black mouse hole. Are there only rank 2 monsters in here? It's the perfect place for an inexperienced person like you to get some practice. Squeak! A monster rat suddenly lunged forward, but Kim Seo-jun nimbly dodged it, then swung his club, slamming it straight into the creature. It sent the thing staggering. After a bit of fighting, Kim Seo-jun was thrilled to discover that his progress was gradually increasing. It seemed this place was a good fit for him. He could increase his strength and earn money at the same time, just like grinding for experience in a game. It made him more and more excited, his speed increasing and his strikes becoming stronger than ever before. Park Seo-jun wondered if she'd found the wrong person. She already knew he was crazy and weird. But to come right back from clearing a dungeon and immediately bury his face in his phone screen, muttering to himself like that, it was the first time she had ever seen anything like it. From Seo-jun's perspective right now, Kim Seo-jun looked like an escaped patient from an asylum. She had no idea how many hours he had been staring at that pitch-black screen. And the bigger problem was that the oddities didn't stop there. When Kim Seo-jun, a cadet who had never received proper training, was able to slaughter the monster rats like a hunter on his very first dungeon run, with over 15 years of training, it truly made her jaw drop. After clearing the area, he started doing those weird exercises again while moving the corpses, something he could have just handled by calling a service. Moving the bodies himself was just surreal, completely beyond her imagination. But right now, what worried Seo-jun just as much was how to explain his existence to her father. She thought, then clutched her head in frustration amidst Kim Seo-jun's shouting, because it was already past midnight, and he still hadn't finished all the lectures. Things were really getting more and more complicated. The next day, Kim Seo-jun grinned from ear to ear, satisfied as he looked at his account screen, which already showed a number with who knows how many zeros. His efforts had really paid off. However, he couldn't help but feel that this kind of cleanup work was a total waste of his lecture-listening time. Kim Seo-jun suddenly wondered if he should ask his colleague, Man Chun, to come and help him. Then he thought of the nearly $10,000 he had just earned. Kim Seo-jun briefly wondered what he should do with it. Clearing the dungeon helped him earn money and increase his lecture progress. But it wasn't as fast as he'd thought. Suddenly, in a moment of reflection, Kim Seo-jun remembered the legendary Great Sage Heaven's Equal lecture. He excitedly clicked the register button, but holy crap. The damn price jumped to $27 million. It made him want to cry a river and smash his phone. Oh my god, this is damn capitalism. A price like this is exactly what you'd expect from the so-called Supreme Academy. By the time he became a professional hunter, he would be drowning in debt. Kim Seo-jun moaned and cried for a while before finally pulling himself together and continuing to scroll to see if there were any cool items for sale. After searching for the bit, Kim Seo-jun's jaw dropped when he saw that this place had every damn thing imaginable, from Angel's holy water to even the spear of the holy dragon Longinus. Even though it was just a replica, they were all legendary-grade equipment, which stunned someone like him who knew nothing about weapons. The thought that these items, created by transcendent beings, could be bought and sold so easily. Kim Seo-jun's eyes lit up like headlights as he immediately clicked to buy the spear of the holy dragon Longinus without a moment's hesitation. But that was just the plan. Whether he could actually afford it was another matter entirely. And just as he expected, the number $100,000 appeared successfully, making him train even more furiously. At that point, Kim Seo-jun couldn't even bring himself to cry, having no idea where he'd dig up that much money. As for that $27 million lecture from the great sage, Heaven's Equal, it looked like he'd have to wait until his next life to watch it. Seo-jun gave a forced smile and walked over, handing him a folder about the academy race. It was a competition between academies, with countless students participating, to show off how amazing they were. She explained that the academy races are considered a Tier 4 league. And in those competitions, you can win the rights to participate in higher-tier leagues, allowing you to register at government-authorized academies. That's why the Hunter Academies don't hesitate to join. And by pouring all the brightest talents into the competition, Seo-Jan's intentions became clear on her face as she laughed loudly, saying she wanted Kim So-jun to participate as a representative for her Hunter Academy. He hesitated for a moment, then agreed to join just to see what it was like, which made Seo-jan incredibly happy. Although she didn't know the exact details of the race, the score would be evaluated, by combining the total points from the dungeon stage and the cadet tournament. This made Kim Seo-jun feel uneasy about his own abilities, as his experience fighting monsters was only with a bunch of beasts. Compared to the other cadets, he had no experience whatsoever. Well, in for a penny, in for a pound. After thinking for a moment, Kim Seo-jun spoke up, wanting to try sparring with Seo-jan. Since she was a B-rank hunter trained by the legendary Sword Saint, her hidden power truly made this Kim Seo-jun curious. Just like that, the two of them, fully armed with their staffs, got into their stances. Seo-jan had already seen through Kim Seo-jun's rushed attacks. Though they were fast, they were also sloppy, making it easy for her to see where he was going to strike. Her earlier expectations had dropped a bit, and as she swung her sword for a finishing blow to put him in his place, yet strangely the powerful sword aura that Seo-jan had just unleashed was effortlessly blocked by Kim Seo-jun in an instant. Though he struggled a bit with the force, Seo-jan was stunned, unable to believe he could block an attack containing her mana like that. The weapon should have flown out of his hand and she should have had her sword at his throat. That's how the script was supposed to go. Facing Seo-jan's dumbfounded expression, Kim Seo-jun let out a faint, arrogant smile and continued to charge forward, swinging his staff. This is unreal. Suddenly, the force of Kim Seo-jun's attacks became much faster and sharper. The speed was a world of difference from before, causing Seo-jan to stumble a bit. In the heat of battle, a voice suddenly echoed softly in his head. It ordered him to quickly change tactics, then detailed various offensive and defensive maneuvers, even how to twirl his staff and combat methods. At the very moment Kim Seo-jun was swinging his staff for a powerful final blow, Seo-jan, in her panic, also used all her strength to counter. With a loud crash, the result was a scene of desolate ruins, with Kim Seo-jun knocked out and his head bleeding. He lay flat in the opposite corner. She gasped and screamed in fear. Let's just say it was an accident. She quickly rushed over to see if he was okay. Kim Seo-jun then propped himself up, scratching his head and hands in embarrassment, unable to believe that he had actually lost to her. It's hard to say if this was really a fight between a B-rank hunter and a cadet. It seems Kim Seo-jun still has a long way to go before he can reach the title of a professional hunter. He suddenly checked his phone and was happy to see that his points had increased as expected. It looked like he'd have to bother Seo-jan to fight with him again in the future. Of course, she agreed. As they spoke, she casually mentioned the prize money for the competition, worth $100,000, which quickly awakened the monster within Kim Seo-jun faster than ever. His eyes suddenly filled with fire, his entire body burned with fighting spirit and hot blood as he relentlessly threw himself into training like a madman, determined to win, leaving Seo-jan at a complete loss. 2 weeks gradually passed. Today was the day of the tournament. The gathering place was now bustling with countless people coming and going, including a strange guy with glasses. He was standing there, constantly muttering to himself. He was also here today to compete. After finding a spot in the waiting room, his hands and feet were trembling so much they were knocking against each other. His body was as stiff as a rock as he witnessed the throngs of muscular soldiers with their collections of serious-looking weapons. The more he looked, the more his eyes hurt. Suddenly, his eyes fell upon the sight of Kim Seo-jun with his crappy weapon and a piece of armor made from clothing, looking so pathetic that he didn't fit in with the surroundings at all. This made the guy's jaw drop even wider. The people around them also began to notice his strangeness and started whispering and gossiping incessantly. Kim Seo-jun just pretended to be deaf and continued to review his notes. His perfect idol-in-the-corner style made the nerdy guy feel a sense of camaraderie, like finding a kindred spirit when you're new in class and no one will play with you. A one-sided friendship blossomed. Under Kim Seo-jun's confused gaze, he timidly approached to introduce himself, saying his name was Lee Min-ji, 19 years old, a natural awakener. After a few greetings, he revealed that the two people arguing loudly not far away were the incredibly strong Jang Duk-truk from Gochuri Academy and Lee Chun-min from Min Academy, who uses dual daggers. Kim Seo-jun was completely bewildered, wondering what the hell this was all about. Who asked this guy to report all this anyway? The loud argument was quickly shut down by Lee Dong-eun from Revenant Academy. The moment he spoke, the atmosphere became dead silent, as if nothing had happened. According to Min-ji, he seems to be the champion of this student tournament thanks to his own immense power. And he'd even rejected Seo-jan's invitation to join her before. Right now, he was furious, constantly slamming the table and chairs because he had to compete with all the low-level people around him. As he spoke, he felt a slight regret for refusing Seo-jan's invitation, as the chance to use her was now gone. He instinctively felt Kim Seo-jun's intense gaze on him. That stare was pissing him off. Kim Seo-jun was just curious about how many bonus points he would get if he fought against him. As he was lost in thought, the announcement speaker came on, stating that the match would begin soon, causing the crowd to become even more restless. Suddenly, Kim Seo-jun shot up and walked straight to the window. He realized that for the past 2 weeks, he had prepared with the goal of reaching 30% progress in Karen and Xiang Yu's lessons, but he hadn't felt any increase in strength or anything similar. His real-world experience was also lacking compared to the other cadets. However, all of that was compensated for by raiding dungeons and sparring with Seo-John. As he thought this, he quickly clenched his fist and reassured himself that he could overcome it all. $100,000, here I come, let's go. A moment later, Kim Seo-Jun felt like he was about to pass out. The announcer stated that the 2 dungeon maze competitions were about to begin. It had just started, and he was already hit with a tough challenge. Kim Seo-Jun really had the worst luck. The first round of the tournament officially began amidst the deafening cheers of the crowd below. Round 1 of the tournament was a dungeon maze race. Other than the requirement to not attack other cadets and to escape the maze, there were no other rules. The audience was a bit confused because even for the lowest level tournament, they wouldn't create a maze so simple that you could escape through sheer luck. They guessed there would probably be monsters in the maze, and hunting them, it would be how to find the way out, creating a test of a hunter's most important skill when raiding a dungeon. On the big screen, an image of Jung was now being displayed. With a deadly gaze, Jung Hwan relentlessly swung his blood-soaked sword amidst the roaring cheers of the crowd, so no one noticed Seo-Yoon had secretly snuck in to scout the situation. Seo-Yoon was shocked to see Jung Hwan in the tournament, and at the same time, immediately grew worried for Kim's safety. As for Seo-Jun, he was struggling terribly in this damn maze with its stone-hard walls he couldn't break. He fumbled along, regretting not having had time to learn Tesla's mountain-breaking lecture. After walking for what felt like forever, Kim Seo-Jun suddenly came to a fork in the road. He planned to follow the basic rule of escaping a maze, keep one hand on a wall and just keep walking in that direction. But strangely, something inside him told him to go the opposite way from the left path. It seemed the sixth sense, the intuition from Karen's lecture, was already working on him. Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And so, Kim Seo-Jun decided to trust his intuition. Announcements of eliminated candidates echoed continuously, but throughout the path Kim Seo-Jun took, he didn't encounter a single obstacle. It was almost too easy, which made him suspect something was off. Could his intuition even avoid monsters? While he was lost in thought about his own abilities, Min-ji's voice suddenly made him jump. Running into this cowardly brat? What bad luck. Even though the kid was pointing out things he already knew perfectly well, Kim Seo-Jun still wanted to follow his gut. Being lumped into the weak category with Min-ji made Seo-Jun unsure whether to laugh or cry. After Min-ji showed him a picture of his little sister, Kim Seo-Jun knew for sure that he was better off going alone. It was nice meeting you. Let's not meet again, okay? Seeing him hurry to turn and leave, Min-ji crawled all over the floor, whining and clinging to him, making it incredibly awkward. With $100,000 waiting for him, how could he let himself get soft over this kid? But then he heard Min-ji say his parents had passed away, and his own painful memories suddenly came rushing back. Min-ji saw Kim Seo-Jun standing there, completely frozen. It just made the boy even more confused. Suddenly, Seo-Jun did a complete 180. A pang of sympathy arose in his heart, and he agreed to let Min-ji come along, leaving the boy dumbfounded. As they walked, every step Kim Seo-Jun took was filled with confidence, as if he already knew the way, which left Min-ji utterly bewildered. His legs were exhausted just from trying to keep up. In front of them now was a dead end. Without a moment's hesitation, Kim Seo-Jun swung his fist, and a flash of light and a cacophony of noise appeared before them. To be precise, they had successfully escaped the maze in record time, sending the crowd into a frenzy of screams, unable to believe their own eyes. Min-ji still hadn't recovered his senses. He was in absolute shock. He had just randomly met Kim Seo-Jun and wanted to team up to get out of the maze. So how the hell did this guy take first place in 27 minutes like it was nothing? Amidst the whispers and gossip, Kim Seo-Jun quietly sat watching lectures on his phone, not noticing Jung Hwan, who had sullenly approached him at some point. He scanned Seo-Jun from head to toe, which Seo-Jun found quite puzzling. After looking his fill, he let out a mocking smirk and turned his back. Walking towards the crowd, he implied that this guy was just lucky. Seo-Jun had actually thought he was going to do something to him. Amidst the noise, the details for Round 2 were brought out. Round 2 would be a one-on-one tournament. Since the competition was a level 4 tournament, to maintain fairness, any weapons containing mana would be excluded, but body enhancement using mana was allowed. Kim Seo-Jun did a quick count and realized that 32 people had passed the first round. In this one-on-one tournament round, starting with 32 contestants is standard. But life is never that simple. Just as the pairings were about to be made, someone raised their hand to forfeit out of fear. This made Kim Seo-Jun want to die right there on the spot. Outside the scorching hot stadium, Seo-Yoon was about to leave when a noisy, arguing crowd of bettors caught her attention. Most of them were betting on Jung Hwan, because who would dare bet on a new cadet? But just then, a mysterious woman arrived with a suitcase containing $1 million to bet on Kim Seo-Jun, driving everyone crazy that someone would dare to make such a huge wager. As for Kim Seo-Jun right now, a few minutes earlier, after hearing the rumors about Jung Hwan and the other high-ranking soldiers, the lower-rank cadets were suddenly overcome with fear. They rushed to withdraw one after another. In the end, only 5 people were left, also known as the 5 tough guys. The tournament bracket was then divided accordingly, with Kim Seo-jun, Kang Duk-jun, Jung Hwan, and Min Ji. Chun Min was the odd one out, so he was asked to leave. Seo-jun was wondering if winning both this round and the next would automatically grant him first place in the finals. He then saw Min Ji shivering and crying miserably, but still refusing to give up, which made him chuckle. Finally, it was time for the match. Kim Seo-jun calmly stood up and walked out. His serene demeanor left Min Ji speechless. Right on cue, the crowd was once again roaring with cheers for the next match, featuring Kim Seo-jun and Kang Duk-jun, the giant from Gochuri Academy. After a bit of trash talk, it was time to begin. Without any hesitation, he charged forward with all his might, meeting Kim Seo-jun's arrogant gaze. Minji, sitting in this waiting room, was trembling just as much as him. He was nervous for him, and for himself as well, because of the dark look on Dong-Oan's face. It was enough to scare him to death. Just when he was about to give up, the results suddenly appeared on the screen. Kim Seo-jun was victorious. This seemed to give Minji a surge of strength, and all the fear he'd been feeling vanished. Rewinding a few minutes earlier, while Deok-jun was furiously swinging his sword with all his might, Kim Seo-jun, on the other hand, was dodging as if it were child's play, making it look as easy as pie, which gradually drained his opponent's stamina. After a while of this frantic effort, he gathered his remaining strength and swung for his final move. Unexpectedly, he was sent flying by Kim Seo-jun's slash, leaving him so shocked he trembled. Just like that, he collapsed at his feet in a pathetic defeat. Oh, for crying out loud. Kim Seo-jun grimaced. He checked his phone, only to find that despite all his hard work, his stats had only increased by a tiny bit. The remaining days were running out, and at this rate, he wasn't getting anywhere. It looked like he wouldn't be able to complete not only the Buddha's lecture, but also Karen's and Shang-gil's assignments before the deadline. To avoid going broke from buying a weapon and repurchasing a free pass, Kim Seo-jun had no other choice but to win. That prize money. Grumbling, he dragged his exhausted body into the room where Minji was already waiting, congratulating him enthusiastically. The second match then began, a stark contrast to Minji's fear. This time, it was a confident and haughty Dong-Oan, if not downright arrogant. "Hey, Minji Junjun," he began, explaining that from the moment he first saw Kim Seo-jun, he'd had a familiar feeling about him. For that reason, when he defeated Deok-jun, he was as happy as if he himself were the victor. But mixed in with that was a little jealousy, too, because he knew he was always unlucky and had no real talent. But the heart of an older brother who wants to make his little sister proud will always light his way. Finally, it was Minji's turn to enter the arena. Kim Seo-jun silently watched his small figure, secretly hoping they would both meet in the finals. Seeing Minji muttering to himself to calm his nerves annoyed Dong-Oan. He focused all his strength on him, brimming with confidence, seeing Minji as nothing more than a useless bastard, aka a creature at the bottom of the food chain. Compared to a predator like himself, he was no different than a blade of grass. Harboring this superiority complex, he believed he was on a completely different level. Seeing Minji trembling as he pointed his sword toward him only made Dong-Oan find the situation more ridiculous. The whistle signaling the start of the match rang out without delay. It was as if Dong-Oan had been waiting for this very moment. He immediately swung his sword aggressively, raining blows down on Minji, who had to block like his life depended on it. His whole body was already completely tense. Wham! A single fiery punch to the gut sent Minji collapsing in pain. Fresh blood poured from his mouth, making it impossible for him to get back up. He already knew he was no match for him. In his daze, Minji suddenly thought of Kim Seo-jun as a source of spiritual strength and forced himself to stand up. He wanted to try giving it his all just once. Even if this was laughably easy for his opponent, Minji still wanted his attack to land just once. With that thought, he began to swing his sword frantically. After a cold metallic clang rang out, Dong-Oan was officially declared the winner. At his feet lay Minji, who had collapsed at some unknown point. There was just one thing that only he knew. Minji's sword had just grazed his face. It was a small cut, but it had wounded Dong-Oan's pride in front of the cheering crowd. Without hesitation, he stomped right on Minji's head and yelled that people like him were nothing but trash in this competition. The situation grew more and more tense. Just as he was about to stomp Minji into the ground, Kim Seo-jun appeared in a flash, sword drawn. He had originally planned to wait for him in the finals, but it looked like he couldn't stand it any longer, because someone deserved to get beaten right here and now. These two young men just stared daggers at each other, surrounded by a crowd eager to see a show. While Dong-Oan wanted him to let go, Kim Seo-jun insisted that he get his foot off Minji's head first. As if to provoke him even further, he put more force into his foot, pressing down hard on the head of Minji, who was lying sprawled on the ground. This sent Kim Seo-jun into a rage. He immediately swung his club, kicking him to the side, then helped the young Minji up, creating a touching scene that made Dong-Oan's eyes twitch with annoyance. He absolutely hated insects who didn't know their place, especially ones who harbored such unrealistic dreams like Minji. And so he got into a continuous war of words with Kim Seo-jun, making the atmosphere more and more suffocating. In the stands, the crowd began to whisper incessantly, but it seemed the organizers had no intention of intervening, following orders from their superiors. They could only watch as a tragedy was about to unfold. Dung Oh-an sneered at Kim Seo-jun and said arrogantly, "In this world, the strong win and the weak lose. There's no place for naive dreamers like you." Hearing this made Kim Seo-jun freeze up, because in the past, he had also thought the same way. During the 9 years he endured to become a top-tier hunter, he had to face reality time and time again. He, Kim Seo-jun, used to be a nobody. He had neither talent nor money. It felt like he couldn't do anything. No matter how hard he worked, it was just enough to get by, never enough to improve his situation, making him ask himself hundreds of times, what would have happened if I had given up back then and done something else? However, even though fear always held him back, making him doubt himself and afraid to face reality, that was no reason to allow Dung On to humiliate him and call him trash like this. The words had barely left his mouth. Ignoring the warnings about breaking the rules against violence, Kim Seo-jun swung his staff like the wind and lunged toward Dung Oh-an. But with his immense natural strength, he managed to block the attack in an instant. The two of them clashed like a dragon fighting a tiger, the impact shaking the ground. Dung Oh-an's power was immense, forcing even Kim Seo-jun to struggle. Facing his fierce attacks, Kim Seo-jun told himself he couldn't afford to lose. Not now. What he needed to do was go with the flow. Moving on pure instinct, he landed a solid blow right on Dung Oh-an's chest, making him stagger. Enraged, Dung Oh-an charged straight at him with his sword. Though he had always been the predator, Kim Seo-jun's sharp gaze made him cautious. Regaining his composure, Dung Oh-an charged at Kim Seo-jun once more. But this time, he nimbly blocked every single one of his attacks. His speed increased with each passing moment, making Dung Oh-an feel like he was facing a frenzied beast pouncing on its prey. In a moment of carelessness, Dung Oh-an was sent flying back by a blow from Kim Seo-jun's staff. To him, this was a great humiliation. Furious, he pulled out an aura sword. Kim Seo-jun was startled. If he couldn't control mana, there was no way he could win. Filled with rage and jealousy, Dung Oh-an gripped the brightly glowing sword. As he prepared to swing it at Kim Seo-jun, amidst the panicked screams from the crowd, he realized that running away was the best option. But for some reason, his body wouldn't obey. His mind screamed at him that if he ran, everything he'd worked so hard for would be for nothing. Suddenly, Kim Seo-jun recalled the words of his instructor from a lecture. You have to give it your all, because the most devastating defeat is losing to yourself. The most important thing is to believe in yourself and try your absolute best. Even if you lose, you go down fighting with everything you've got. With that powerful mental boost, Kim Seo-jun turned and charged, completely defying all of Dung Oh-an's expectations. It made him so furious he could spit blood. He poured all of his hatred into a direct clash with Kim Seo-jun, causing the very ground to shake as if the world were ending. There was a flash of light, and a cloud of dust billowed up, obscuring the view. Everyone in the audience was on the edge of their seats, dying to know who had won. Then, a figure collapsed, and it was none other than Dung Oh-an, with blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Beside him, Kim Seo-jun was gasping for breath, too exhausted to speak. And just like that, Kim Seo-jun had defeated Dung Oh-an. The crowd erupted into thunderous cheers, the stands ready to explode after witnessing what had just unfolded. Their idol, Dung Oh-an, had been completely crushed by Kim Seo-jun, left sprawling on the ground. They began chanting Kim Seo-jun's name over and over, singing his praises. Up in the stands, Seo-jun felt like she was going to faint. Just 2 weeks ago, she'd seen him struggling just to fight with a mana-infused sword, and now he could create such a powerful spear aura. It was truly unbelievable. Glancing to the side, she suddenly noticed the mysterious person who'd been hiding under a thick cloak earlier. He now looked completely stunned, as if he couldn't believe Kim Seo-jun had won. His exaggerated reaction was as if some ancient natural law had just been broken. It made Seo-jun suspicious. She clearly remembered him placing a bet on Kim Seo-jun to win earlier. But when she turned to look again, he had vanished into thin air. The setting sun cast its light on his battered body. Exhausted, Kim Seo-jun walked slowly, recalling what had happened. The organizers had announced that both of them were disqualified for interfering in the match, even though it wasn't an official one. They had also ignored all the referee's warnings, so he had violated the rules of the game. As for Dung Oh-an, by using his aura sword, he had clearly shown his intent to kill his opponent. Therefore, he would be banned from participating in the Super Hunter exam for the next 5 years. And finally, the organizers declared Lee Juk-min the winner of the tournament by default. Min-ji was ranked second, and somehow Deok-jun ended up in third place. Kim Seo-jun thought the results were completely absurd, but whatever. At least his learning progress had increased significantly. The pace of his learning process skyrocketed while fighting Dung Oh-an. Notably, his Xiangyu lesson proficiency shot past 50%, probably due to that strange mental energy he felt. Just as he was scrolling through his phone looking for a new lesson, Seo-jun suddenly appeared behind him, making him jump. She quietly asked how he was doing. When she heard him apologize for interrupting her match and causing her to lose her chance at victory, Seo-jun was a bit taken aback. Honestly, all she was worried about was whether he was okay, because the prize money was gone. It was only then that Kim Seo-jun, with his goldfish memory, remembered. He grabbed his head in despair. All his shopping plans, gone in a puff of smoke. he could say goodbye to the Longinus Spear and unlocking the next lesson. But what's done is done. Kim Seo-jun sighed, saying it would be a lie to say he had no regrets, but he knew he would have regretted it even more if he hadn't stepped in. Hearing him say that, Seo-jan felt a little less worried. As the two of them were chatting, Min-ji suddenly came running up to them. He had a bandage wrapped around a wound on his head, and he saw that Kim Seo-jun was about to leave. Gathering all his courage, he said that he wanted to become someone like him if he just kept trying. His words gently tugged at Kim's already sensitive heartstrings. Seo-jun looked at Min-ji's tear-filled eyes and suddenly said coldly, "It might be very difficult." To be honest, Kim Seo-jun felt that Min-ji's talent would leave him lagging far behind, especially if he wanted to become a super hunter in this day and age. Trying to face this world with nothing but dreams and ideals is an incredibly harsh path. He wanted to warn the boy not to be so single-minded, to focus on becoming a hunter, because there are still plenty of other opportunities for young people like Min-ji, who listened to his every word. All of his worries instantly vanished. He then sadly thanked Kim Seo-jun and turned to leave. From behind, Kim Seo-jun's voice echoed with words of encouragement, hoping that from now on, he wouldn't belittle himself because of the careless words of others. If he wanted to do something, he should just do it proudly, knowing that was enough. Min-ji etched every word into his memory, his eyes welling up with tears, as he emotionally bid farewell to Kim Seo-jun. Under the pale afternoon sun, seeing this profound side of Kim Seo-jun for the first time, even surprised Seo-jan. Hearing him say our academy made her indescribably happy, and she immediately invited Kim Seo-jun to go to her grandfather's workshop. She wanted to give him a weapon as a gift. At a shrine far from the city center, Seo Moon-chun, the Sword Saint's aide, was currently scrambling into the room just as the old Sword Saint was meditating. This infuriated him, causing him to release a pressure so intense it was impossible to breathe. With labored breaths, Seo Moon-chun panted that Seo-jan had recently participated in the Academy's tournament, and it seemed she had successfully recruited a new student. These words succeeded in piquing the curiosity of the Sword Saint, Park Min-chun, making him feel that he had to go there in person, to see just what kind of person he was. Seeing Kim Seo-jun working diligently day after day on quests to achieve his dream of buying equipment was frustrating for Seo-jan to watch. She had clearly taken him to the shop. But Kim Seo-jun, with his incredibly picky nature, ended up not buying anything at all. He really was a handful. Kim Seo-jun's face turned pale. He never expected her to read him like an open book. It was just that he wasn't satisfied with ordinary weapons after having seen firsthand the ones created by one of the Transcendents. He then remembered the soaring prices, which made Kim Seo-jun realize it was likely the influence of the law of causality. If money wasn't earned through hard work. Just then, Seo-jan's curious voice cut in, wanting to know how Kim Seo-jun could control his mana so incredibly well. Because watching how he fought monsters proved that Kim Seo-jun could control it with considerable skill, even though she had never seen him practice once. It was only now that Kim Seo-jun vaguely remembered that he had never learned a single mana technique. It was known as a technique that allows the user to control and use mana more efficiently. Based on its effectiveness, it was divided into high level and low level. Every hunter has their own mana technique, and they are even patented. This was also the reason Kim Seo-jun tried so hard to get into a high-level school like the Academy. Hunter Seo-jan revealed that her grandfather had strictly forbidden her from learning those techniques at school. Instead, she could teach him a technique she had invented herself, which greatly surprised Kim Seo-jun. He never thought she had such a talent. However, after thinking for a moment, Kim Seo-jun realized she was right. Mana techniques are fundamental for a hunter, and he felt the first difference between being able to use mana or not during the fight with Yong-un not long ago. Now that he had free time, Kim Seo-jun thought that learning about mana was a good thing in this harsh world dominated by the law of causality. Mana was the way to rise up and fight against the world's laws. After Seo-jan left, Kim Seo-jun immediately took out his phone to watch a lecture on mana taught by the Archmage Merlin. After watching for a while, he felt like his brain was going to explode. In a flash, the mage finished his explanation, saying that each person must find their own mana, which left Kim Seo-jun stunned. Hello? How am I supposed to do the assignment when I haven't even understood anything yet? He tried to muster his strength and focus his mind. Thanks to the intuition he learned from Karen, his body could easily sense and control mana clearly, but for some reason, he still couldn't shape it into a solid form. Recalling the mage's lecture from earlier, that the transformation of mana was like an aura, Kim Seo-jun focused all his strength and compressed it, in no time at all. With a sudden flash, he surprisingly created a mana stone, a success beyond his wildest dreams. It was a bit small, but he told himself he would get better with time. Suddenly, a voice echoed from behind, making Kim Seo-jun jump. It was none other than the Sword Saint, Park Min-chun himself. He had come to see who Seo-jan's new student was, and unexpectedly witnessed him creating a mana stone with his own hands. Though it was slow, he was truly and undoubtedly a genius, because it was very difficult to do. A genius like Kim Seo-jun joining Seo-jan's academy like this made him suspect that he was targeting his granddaughter. With that thought, his fierce aura flared as he aggressively asked for his name. Without a hint of fear, Kim Seo-jun quickly introduced himself, not expecting Seo-jan's grandfather to be here. He then said that she had gone out. This made the color on the old man's face drain even more. Park Min-chun stared at him and revealed that the killing intent he had been radiating this whole time should have been enough to make Kim Seo-jun freeze to death, unless he was an S-rank hunter. Yet Kim Seo-jun acted as if nothing was wrong, which was truly suspicious. He looked around blankly, still not understanding what the old man meant. Park Min-chun could no longer contain himself. He drew his sword and stepped towards him, his form filled with a furious, murderous aura that scared him out of his wits. He tried to explain, but it seemed the old man had no intention of listening. With a whoosh, a blast of energy shot from his hand, sending Kim Seo-jun tumbling to the ground, terrified for his life. Meanwhile, Seo-jan had gone to see her grandfather to tell him about Kim Seo-jun, but was disappointed to find he wasn't there. Little did she know that her grandfather was currently at the academy, and had been wanting to deal with Kim Seo-jun for some time. Seo-jan was overjoyed to suddenly run into Seo here. It was perfect timing, as she was just about to contact him to ask where her grandfather was. Hearing this, the smile vanished from Seo's face. His wrinkled face turned pale as he informed her that her grandfather had already gone to the academy. Seo-jan's heart skipped a beat. As fast as she could, she turned and ran for her life back to the academy. She wouldn't let those two meet alone, even if someone held a knife to her throat. I'm afraid all of Seo-jun's worries were for nothing, because Kim Seo-jun and Park Min-jun were in a rather tense situation. He suddenly realized the old man was swinging his sword without even taking it out of its sheath. He immediately understood that the man only wanted to block him, not kill him. With that, he trembled in confusion, saying it was all just a misunderstanding. But his opponent didn't believe him, not even 1%. His powerful aura slammed right into Kim Seo-jun, forcing him to defend himself until he was dead tired. Park Min-jun was like a man possessed. His whole body was shrouded in a pitch-black murderous aura as he inwardly felt that Kim Seo-jun was just lying. This stubborn attitude of his made Kim Seo-jun feel completely helpless. Fine, do whatever you want to me. He knew that even though the old man looked fierce, he didn't seem to want to kill him. Because if the Sword Saint truly wanted to strike, he would have died the moment he felt his presence. The great sage, equal to heaven, the Sword Saint, was right in front of him, the person closest to his ideal image. This made Kim Seo-jun realize that this was a wonderful opportunity for himself. Without further hesitation, Kim Seo-jun lightly swung his sword into a ready stance, which slightly surprised Park Min-jun. In the past few decades, he had met countless hunters, but only one of them still burned with the will to fight even after facing him, and that was none other than Kim Seo-jun. His heart overflowing with love for his granddaughter, Park Min-jun quickly lunged forward. His speed and power forced Kim Seo-jun to struggle to hold his ground in midair. He opened his eyes slightly, and before him was a colossal wave of killing intent rushing towards him, making him break out in a cold sweat. However, a legendary survivor like Kim Seo-jun was determined not to give up. And so, despite the overwhelming aura, he continued to swing his sword relentlessly, but in the end, he was sent flying and crashed to the ground. Kim Seo-jun felt that something was off. He couldn't just let go of the only chance he had right now, especially when the old man was still going easy on him. And so, he stubbornly got back up, determined to end this in one more blow. His body was continuously being battered by Park Min-jun, but remembering the words from Wizard Merlin's lecture, Kim Seo-jun tried to muster all his strength. He swung his staff with all his might, but after the thick dust cleared, he had been beaten so badly he couldn't even sit up to be beaten to this extent. And yet Kim Seo-jun kept calling out Seo-jan's name. It really got on the old man's nerves, and his rage flared up again as he was about to give him another beating. Fortunately, Seo-jan arrived just in time. What a relief. He finally calmed down and stopped. Seeing Kim Seo-jun's bruised and swollen face, and the two of them bickering like children, gave Seo-jan a headache. She had never seen anyone dare to talk back to the Sword Saint like he was doing right now. Park Min-jun's outrageous behavior today made Seo-jan both annoyed and ashamed in front of Kim Seo-jun for what he had to endure. She then shyly bowed her head and apologized to him, which made Kim Seo-jun a bit flustered. He looked up and saw the look in Park Min-jun's eyes. He immediately understood that the man wanted to talk to her alone. And so, he tactfully made an excuse about going to the hospital and slipped away, for which Seo-jan was a little grateful that he understood. After he left, she slowly turned around to face her grandfather directly and coldly stated that she wanted to have a clear talk with him, even though she was extremely nervous inside. Suddenly, Park Min-jun spoke first, saying that Kim Seo-jun was very suspicious. His words, "What would you know?" brought back all of Seo-jan's old resentments. She had to listen to these condescending words from her own grandfather for the past 31 years, even at the Hunter Academy. She couldn't escape him, as he always caused trouble whenever she had new students, so they all left sooner or later. She knew why her grandfather acted this way, as well as the motives behind why people came here. That was why she couldn't stop them whenever they wanted to leave. However, Kim Seo-jun was different. She didn't want to lose him. With that, she flew into a rage and shouted as if yelling right in his face, "I don't want to!" All her pent-up frustration finally had a chance to erupt today. Seo-jan, crying and yelling, declared that this was her academy, so she would no longer do what he wanted. It's not like they had created precious memories together, and it's not like she had special feelings for him, but whenever she saw Kim Seo-jun, she got a strange feeling. It made her want to be with him longer, even though she herself didn't understand why. She angrily stated that she couldn't live in his shadow forever, because she had never wanted to in the first place. Without letting him say a word, she turned around, opened the door, and walked straight out, leaving Park Min-jun still in a state of shock. It was the first time he had seen his granddaughter express her opinions so forcefully. Memories of that fateful day flashed back to him, the day his son died after a dungeon break. Since then, he had adopted the now-alone Seo-jun. He decided he had to give her the strength to protect herself. That was also why he was so strict, even when she didn't like swordsmanship and just wanted to become a teacher. After pressuring her for all those years, he knew her feelings had been suppressed, but he intentionally ignored it. Only now did he understand the consequences of rebellion. A few days later, Kim Seo-jun was walking down the street, stretching and thinking about today's mission. That day, the Sword Saint came looking for him. The day before yesterday. He thought he was a goner for sure. Thank goodness Seo-jun arrived in time. Otherwise, he wouldn't have just gotten away with a few bruises. He remembered how she had called him last night and explained the current situation and the relationship between her and her grandfather, as well as what happened to the students before him. He was sure that wasn't the whole story, but he understood how she felt and why the Sword Saint hated him so much. However, the fact that he was beaten up for no reason like that, it was really getting on his nerves. But no matter what, he had to go see the old man today to apologize so this would never happen again. As he fearfully opened the door, he saw Park Min-jun already sitting there, waiting for him. It made Kim Seo-jun's face go pale with fear, as he silently wondered if the old man was planning to beat him up again. The two of them just sat there together, patching things up like old times as if nothing had ever happened. Though Park Min-jun still didn't quite trust Kim Seo-jun. Annoyed, he growled that he had nothing to hide. After his whole song and dance, the old man started to feel like he might be telling the truth, but the power and talent that were constantly radiating off of him at that moment, it really gave the old man a headache. Not to mention that the moment he saw him, he'd become inexplicably irritated. So hard to understand. Suddenly, he shot up, saying he wanted to go train, making the old man jump. He realized that was it. If he could just see him train, maybe he'd figure out what he was trying to hide. However, upon witnessing it firsthand, Park Min-jun still couldn't freaking understand his bizarre training method. Staring at a pitch-black phone screen for hours. You call that training? Thinking he was meditating, the old man launched into a long lecture about its benefits, giving Kim Seo-jun a massive headache. He just apathetically hummed in agreement to get it over with. Seeing this indifferent attitude really got on his nerves. Park Min-jun then played his final card, vaguely hinting that he would teach him a few things, hoping to pique Kim Seo-jun's curiosity. But unfortunately for him, our guy here was just not interested. He flatly refused and went right back to burying his head in the screen. This made Park Min-jun feel like he was going to faint, unable to believe his ears. This was the first time a sword saint like him had ever been so bluntly rejected. At that moment, Seo-jun arrived. She saw Park Min-jun and him glaring daggers at each other. She immediately stepped in to intervene. The old man quietly pulled her into a corner, his mysterious eyes darting around, and whispered in her ear that he thought something was wrong with Kim Seo-jun's head. This surprised her a bit. Huh? He seems perfectly normal to me. She had already grown to understand his peculiar ways very well. Seeing his niece remain so unfazed, in the face of his warnings, and seeing how she lit up with a bright smile every time she saw him, made him curious about their relationship. Looking closely, he noticed that he rarely ever saw Seo-jun this happy. A hint of annoyance grew in his heart at the thought of Kim Seo-jun daring to go after his precious niece. He had already clenched his hands into fists. Just then, the guard, Sel, suddenly ran up to report that the Church of Justice was urgently looking for him. Kalia herself had come in person with a request. If there was someone named Kim Seo-jun, he was to come along as well. Hearing this from the side, he couldn't help but be stunned. Needless to say, Park Min-jun was also floored that Kalia even knew about him. Seo-jun suddenly remembered what happened during the tournament. She had seen a very suspicious person in a black cloak, and she secretly wondered if that person might be connected to this. How surreal. Kalia was one of the 7 apostles of the Church of Justice. They were always treated like heads of state, wielding immense power. On top of that, she was also the successor to the currently vacant position of the virtuous saint. And yet today, she had specifically requested Kim Seo-jun by name. He quickly refused, feeling that since he didn't know her at all, he'd be much happier staying home to train. The guard, Sel, suddenly spoke up with a guess. Perhaps... Kalia anticipated that Kim Seo-jun would refuse, so she asked me to relay a message if that happened. What's more, she included a promise to give you $100,000. Hearing this, Kim Seo-jun felt like he'd been struck by lightning. How the hell did she know he needed money? The Church of Justice is a religious order that serves justice in the name of their god, a figure shrouded in a mysterious cloak known as the Azure Emperor. And its 7 apostles are its most vital members. They declare that their words are justice, the words of a god. A century ago, the Church of Justice was treated as nothing more than a cult. However, during the Great Deluge, By uniting their power with that of countless superheroes, they played an immense role in bringing peace to all of humanity. This also allowed them to grow significantly. And amid all of that, the most critical event was the appearance of a giant monster of insane cruelty. Its power was so terrifyingly immense that even the combined might of superheroes from all over the world was helpless against it. It got to the point where some even called it the Second Great Deluge. But the only ones who could defeat that monstrous beast were the Azure Emperor and the 7 Apostles. They were the key to ending the Great Deluge. Now, at a hotel somewhere on the outskirts of Seoul, Kim Seo-jun and Min-jun arrived to meet Kalia. He was curious after what Seo-jun had said earlier, and felt that if Kalia was planning to recruit him into her organization, he had to meet her face to face, to get some clear answers. Following the directions, the two entered a spacious and luxurious room. Min-jun mentioned that this was his first time meeting Kalia as well, which surprised Kim Seo-jun. He'd thought they were close. While they waited for her to appear, Min-jun revealed that he had met the previous Apostle of Virtue before, but he had never met the successor. As for the Azure Emperor, he'd only ever seen him from afar. Suddenly, the sound of a door opening interrupted the conversation. Kalia, the successor to the Apostle of Purity, with her flaxen hair and overwhelming aura, slowly entered with a gentle smile. She introduced herself as Kalina, a disciple of the Church of Justice, a disseminator of the God's will, and the successor to the Apostle of Purity. She was delighted to meet Kim Seo-jun here today. She gave 2 reasons for knowing about him. One of her followers had been watching him when he participated in the Academy's competition. That guy praised him so much that she became curious and wanted to see for herself just how amazing he was. That's why she invited him here. Kim Seo-jun guessed that her motive for inviting him probably wasn't that simple, which made Kalina chuckle at his perceptiveness. He had read her like a book. The 3 of them then sat down to talk. Kalina began by inviting Park Min-chun to scout a dungeon with her, which made him immediately annoyed. He wanted to know why on earth he had to go with her. Kalina explained that they had received a report about a distortion in one of the dungeons in Korea, guessing that Min-chun probably understood this matter better than anyone. He glanced at her and immediately understood this was the reason she had returned to Korea. At the same time, she could secure her position as the successor. With that, he wondered what he would get if he agreed to cooperate with her. Suddenly, he heard Kalina mention Seo-jan's Hunter Academy. Min-chun's expression changed in a flash. He didn't want anyone messing with Seo-jan. With that thought, his entire body began to radiate a bone-chilling aura. It made Kim Seo-jun, sitting next to him, get goosebumps. Kalina knew she had touched a sore spot and quickly apologized, saying she would grant one of his requests. She even swore on the honor of the Church of Justice, making it impossible for him to refuse. After the 2 of them performed the ritual for the Oath of Justice, it was Kim Seo-jun's turn. Kalina stated bluntly that the Church of Justice wanted to support him in areas many beyond the Academy's help, without asking for anything in return, because they felt that the friendly relationship between the Church of Justice and him was more than enough. Kim Seo-jun thought to himself that she spoke as if it were a no-strings-attached deal, but he figured they'd eventually want something in return. With that thought, he decided to go big or go home, ignoring all potential problems, and immediately pulled out his phone, holding the screen towards her. He wanted to know if she could see anything on the phone screen. Contrary to what Kim Seo-jun was thinking, he didn't know whether Kalia could see anything or not. But she still said that all she saw was a black screen, and this answer seemed to satisfy Kim Seo-jun, so he flat-out rejected her offer. So fake, a total red flag. Night had fallen, and the beautiful Kalina was clearly angry. According to her followers, Kim Seo-jun was supposed to be special, but she just found him to be very ordinary. His abilities were only at a novice's level. She had been a bit startled earlier when he suddenly shoved his phone in her face and asked if she could see anything. Perhaps her feeling of dissatisfaction overshadowed everything else. Putting that aside, the follower reported that he had contacted the Black Saint and the Mind Saint about the matter of the Unseeables. It sounded incredibly mysterious. Kim Seo-jun and Min-chun had also left by now and were heading back. He recalled what happened earlier and felt a little annoyed because although Kalia had nothing to do with the Transfer Academy, he didn't want to accept the goodwill of someone who was two-faced. He still preferred Seo-jun's academy. In response to Kim Seo-jun's questions, Min-chun explained that dungeon scouting was necessary because the warping magic inside dungeons causes many ripples, affecting the dungeon's level up or its collapse. That causes a lot of difficulties, just like during the Great Cataclysm. Seeing Kim Seo-jun's curious gaze, he turned and walked in another direction, warning him not to get involved with Seo-jan. He had clearly acknowledged him but was too stubborn to admit it. This made the persistent Kim Seo-jun laugh and tease him relentlessly until he got angry enough to want to punch him, at which point he quickly ran off. Seo-jan was very surprised to see Kim Seo-jun come home alone. Surprised, she asked, and he told her the old man had gone somewhere else. She then quietly apologized for her grandfather's rude attitude, but surprisingly, she heard Kim Seo-jun defend him, wanting to strengthen the bond between her and Min-chun. This made Seo-jan a little happy. Knowing he needed money, Seo-jan showed him an announcement about the dungeon cleanup competition happening on the 24th. Seo-jan explained that this competition was meant to clear out unprocessed dungeons. They don't generate much money, are usually low rank, and are difficult to attack. Over time, these unresolved dungeons will break, and monsters will pour out. Even if the monsters are low level, they can still be dangerous to ordinary people. Initially, these dungeons were handled by hunter civil servants, but wasting high-level hunters in a place like this was wasteful and inefficient in every way. So the government replaced it with another method, this dungeon extermination competition. Most of the unprocessed dungeons can be cleared by students. After all, there are plenty of students with free time now, so just adding a line saying, "It will be reflected in student evaluations" gets it taken care of quickly. He saw that the prize for winning was 300,000, and on top of that, the competition itself was a dungeon extermination, so he could speed up his lecture progress by participating, which made Kim Seo-jun very interested. There was no reason for him not to participate. Seeing that radiant expression on Seo-jan's face made him laugh. He knew she wasn't asking him for a favor, but it was clear she was just pretending. She must have gone all over the place looking for information about it. Based on past experience, I know that anything can happen, so I can't take this lightly. Deep down, he was burning with the hope of winning this time. So there's a reward, too? The two competitions will be held over 1 week. When the competition begins, the government will provide participants with a list of dungeons. To clear them, participants will confirm the list, then reserve a dungeon they want to clear on the app, and then go clear it. However, the reserved dungeon must be dealt with within 10 hours. You can only reserve one place at a time. Otherwise, the reservation will be canceled. In short, the evaluation criteria will depend on how fast you are and how many you clear. The number of dungeons you clear and your speed are key, so it's not wrong to say that the cost of gas is more important than the prize money. Kim Seo-jun thought for a moment and felt this was going to be tough to swallow. Clearing dungeons while also processing the corpses. But speed is the key. It seems I should focus more on the prize money and ignore those corpses that aren't worth much. Then suddenly, Kim Seo-jun shot up and thought for a moment, as if an idea had just struck him. A few days later, on the day of the competition, Kim Seo-jun turned on his device and discovered that, thanks to his hard work, his lecture progress rate had increased quite a bit. However, Karen's and Merlin's progress had stopped increasing. Looks like I need something else. I've already downloaded the app. Now I'm just waiting for the person I called, the helper, to arrive. After a while, that person finally arrived. And it was none other than Manhwa, his old colleague from the construction site a few days ago. He had called him to ask for help in the competition. The main job would be to help transport the corpses of the monsters he killed, as well as act as his driver. He desperately needed his help, because dismantling the valuable parts of a monster is something that requires skill. He trusted Manhwa completely, which is why he entrusted this to him. A ping on his phone announced that the competition had officially begun. The two of them said goodbye to Seo-jan and set off. After getting in the car, Kim Seo-jun explained that there are 2 necessary conditions for this competition. 1 is how fast you can clear the dungeon, and 2 is how quickly you can get to the chosen dungeon. Basically, speed is life in this competition. They're mostly just dungeons with level 1 to 2 monsters. The clearing time will vary depending on the type of dungeon, but what I'm concerned about is how long it'll take us to get to each one. Manhwa briefly looked over the list of dungeon locations in this competition. Hearing Kim Seo-jun say that he had to find the shortest route to the dungeons made him let out a weary sigh, wondering if he could really do it. With that, he slammed on the gas and took off like a bullet. The supervisor, Go Soo-jin, was currently yawning over and over after seeing the unremarkable Kim Seo-jun from Dream Academy set off. She silently guessed that his power was probably average. It'll probably take him at least an hour. She saw Manhwa just standing outside and watching, so she felt at ease. But suddenly, the gate burst open. Kim Seo-jun quickly popped his head out and yelled for the older man to come in and help him carry things, causing Go Soo-jin to rush over and stop him. She thought it was cheating. But then she heard Kim Seo-jun say he had already cleared the dungeon by himself. She couldn't believe it. Was he kidding her? She went in to check for herself. Unexpectedly, what lay before her was exactly what he'd said. Mountains of bloody monster corpses piled on top of each other. Only 10 minutes had passed, and she couldn't help but be astonished. The two of them just carried the corpses outside and began to dismantle them. With Manhwa's skills, it only took 15 seconds for each one. Go Soo-jin saw him about to process the bodies and yelled out, but it was useless because what he was doing wasn't against the rules. And so, the two of them competed, one killing and the other butchering. The bloody, chaotic scene was horrifying. Once done, they both hurriedly got in the car and sped away, leaving Go Soo-jin there, shocked to her core and still unable to compose herself. The car sped like a getaway vehicle, rushing to the next location. Too fast, too dangerous, Kim Seo-jun ran inside and, with a few basic attacks, finished them off in no time. Then he scrambled to bring them out for Manhwa to handle before disappearing as quickly as he had appeared. He left behind the bewildered face of the supervisor. At the Dungeon Management Office, under the Ministry of Security and Public Administration, the staff was in utter chaos. When they saw the dungeon competition report with Kim Seo-jun in the lead for having cleared 32 of them, it seemed completely unreal. But after they confirmed it, they announced it was true. He was able to clear the dungeon and all the dungeons along his travel route. Furthermore, according to the proctor, his clear time was less than 10 minutes per dungeon. Even though he didn't violate any regulations, The department head was startled when he heard Kim Seo-jun was a student of the Dream Hunter Academy, remembering it was the academy founded by the Sword Saint's grandchild. He grew a little suspicious. Could the Sword Saint have had a hand in this? He quickly hurried off to double-check. Meanwhile, the second-place contestant, Lee So-yeon from Academy X, was gloomily apologizing to her father for losing the top spot. She heard him press her, asking if she could clear 32 dungeons in a single day. It made her pause. He scoffed, saying that it would be possible if someone were secretly helping. With that, he turned and left, satisfied. This made her a bit suspicious. Could her father have been involved in foul play from the very beginning? Her father is Lee Sok-man, a former A-rank hunter and the current principal of the IS Academy. As Lee So-yeon's father, he always believed that what mattered most was who gained the benefit. Everything else was secondary. With his own scheming mind, he hoped she wouldn't be foolish enough to still think of herself as innocent. This made So-yeon extremely doubtful of herself, and she quietly left her father's room. Her mind drifted to memories of that boy from long ago, a boy who always lived with integrity, a complete opposite to her own nature. A mix of shame and remorse surged within her, making her blood boil. The sky had already turned dark. Kim Seo-jun and Man Cheol were sprawled out on a park bench, resting and constantly massaging their aching limbs. He said that after expenses and taxes, the two of them had earned about 7,800,000. If they split it 50-50, each would get around 3,900,000. But Man Cheol wanted a 70-30 split instead, because he felt all the credit belonged to him. With that, he adamantly insisted on taking the smaller share. Kim Seo-jun had no choice but to agree. He was a bit curious why the old man didn't seem surprised at all to see him raiding dungeons. Man Cheol explained that he had seen him fight at the academy before. This really surprised him. He gave a slight smile, looking at the older man. Even though he was a bit gruff, he was always there to cheer him on, which was a huge source of moral support. On the second day of the dungeon conquest competition, Kim Seo-jun and Man Cheol had become known as the Dungeon Cleaners, and their results always put them in first place. At this rate, he couldn't help but think about the victory that was now in sight. There were only 5 days left. The two of them were incredibly excited, thinking about their future if they won and hoping everything would continue to go smoothly. But on the morning of the third day of the competition, Kim Seo-jun suddenly discovered that all the dungeons around him had already been reserved at some point. The nearest dungeon was at least a 1-hour drive away, and all the others were fully booked. It seemed someone was trying to get in his way. The two decided to just head to any dungeons that hadn't been reserved yet. But when they arrived at the next dungeon, and the one after that, the same thing happened. In the end, he only managed to clear a mere 10 dungeons today. How bizarre. Man Cheol guessed that the person in second place, So-yeon, was probably behind this. He urged him to report it to the organizers. This is just so infuriating. He thought for a moment and realized that although he was still in the lead, there were still 3 days left. He feared that if what happened today repeated, he might lose the championship. Even if they ignored the time spent dismantling monsters, travel time was still an issue. Man Cheol said he would try to find the fastest route, but if they kept getting blocked like this, there was nothing he could do. Kim Seo-jun pondered for a moment, then gave a smirk. He said he had an idea. The look on his face was unbearably cunning. So-yeon had hired other hunters to take turns reserving all the dungeons around him while he was in a raid. But today, a problem occurred. Kim Seo-jun reserved a dungeon right next to Lee So-yeon's. So if her goons reserved all the dungeons around that area, So-yeon wouldn't have any dungeons to attack either. And just as Kim Seo-jun had planned, with this method, both he and she were only able to conquer a small number of dungeons, so she couldn't overtake him in the rankings. It was basically a case of mutual destruction. Her father never expected he would come up with such a countermeasure. With that, he reassured So-yeon to just keep fighting. He would take care of the rest. The next morning was the 5th day. As So-yeon was walking, she was surprised to run into Kim Seo-jun and Man Cheol, who were approaching arrogantly. He subtly hinted at her cheating, which made So-yeon's face turn purple with rage. She knew he was saying it just to belittle her. There were no good intentions behind it whatsoever, because as far as she knew, the animal called human was inherently selfish. No matter what they did, they evaluated it based on personal gain. If it benefits them, they do it. If not, they don't. In that process, there's no such thing as good intentions, like goodwill or kindness. With that, she swung her sword and charged straight into the dungeon, stirring up a bloody mess. Just as she stepped out, she was startled to see that Kim Seo-jun had already finished his raid at some point. He and Man Cheol were busy hauling away carcasses, and he even asked for the ones she had just killed. This really made So-yeon wonder. He explained that he was doing it for the money. Hearing this, she felt a bit bored and turned to leave. She knew very well that there was no such thing as good intentions in this world. Therefore, there were no hunters with good intentions either. In her eyes, it was just a job. Meanwhile, Min Chun was busy dealing with monsters in a dungeon with Kalina. It was supposed to be a level 6 monster lair, but unexpectedly, it was level 10. This made him extremely suspicious. The Church of Justice was probably up to something, just like 35 years ago. It infuriated him. Despite Kalina's explanations, Jeok Yong-min, a disciple of the Demon Star, suddenly appeared. She also sensed that this was an unusual flow of magic. Nothing like this had ever happened before. It seemed they needed to re-examine the low-level dungeons the guildmaster was surveying. At Kim Seo-jun's current competition site, 3 dungeon gates mysteriously appeared all at once, leaving all the supervisors completely stunned. Oh my god, this is unreal. It seems like whenever Kim Seo-jun and Montel show up at a dungeon, a huge crowd gathers to watch, so they can't use their old methods anymore. So they immediately found a new way to obstruct them. Needless to say, Seo-jun was absolutely furious. He swore he would file a formal complaint no matter what. We've been too easy on them and now they're completely out of line. And so, thanks to her, an announcement was made. In the event that a contestant's pre-booked dungeon is attacked without that contestant's consent, the turn can be transferred based on the dungeon proctor's decision, which temporarily put Kim Seo-jun's mind at ease. He thought they'd have no other way to stop him, but it seems Kim Seo-jun spoke too soon. If one method fails, they'll just come up with 100 others to block him. Specifically, they'd use excuses like a broken-down car to block the road, or 1,001 other reasons to hinder their movement. And then the inevitable happened. The top of the leaderboard was taken by Sozon. After some digging, he learned she was from the academy where Lee Sukman, a former A-rank professional hunter, is the principal. She's one of the few people her grandfather acknowledged. Despite her limited abilities, she has a silver tongue and is incredibly well-connected, so it'll probably be hard to dig up anything. It seems the only way to resolve this now is for the Sword Saint to step in personally. But Seo-jun can't even hope for that right now. He doesn't even dare to contact her. Seeing that Seo-jun had already tried his best, Montel boldly declared that a true man like Kim Seo-jun would handle the rest himself. At the mention of his name, a cunning, rather dangerous smile flashed across his face. He must have come up with some kind of wicked plan. And voila! With his traditional technique, also known as bribing the proctor, Kim Seo-jun successfully booked a dungeon and cleared it swiftly in just 5 minutes. He left them no time to react, especially with the management team supervising right there. When they heard he was from the academy founded by the Sword Saint's granddaughter, they started causing a ruckus. Lee Sukman, driven by his endless ambition, became aggressive. He ordered his subordinates to take care of him by any means or trick necessary. After many grueling days, Kim Seo-jun and Sozon ended up with the same score. This forced the organizers to call an immediate meeting. Needless to say, it was the most chaotic meeting ever, with Seo-jun and Lee, Sukman inside, screaming their heads off at each other. The organizers announced that they couldn't accept a co-championship, and since there was no proof of Sozon's misconduct, they decided on the following. After a heated discussion, the captain of the dungeon management team saw that Kim, Seo-jun and Sozon were both present and immediately explained the rules for the final tiebreaker match. The rule was simple. Out of the 3 dungeons before them, each person had to choose one and clear it. Whoever clears their dungeon faster and then proceeds to clear the remaining one will be the winner. All the dungeons are level 2, so they are equally difficult. Therefore, both of them must choose their own dungeon. Kim Seo-jun thought for a moment. He knew the chances of her rigging. This match were very low, but he still had to be cautious. With that, he spoke up and requested the first dungeon on the right, which meant the dungeon on the left belonged to Sozon. Suddenly, she whispered in his ear, "Try not to feel too bad about this," which left him stunned. Before he could even process it, she had dashed inside. Kim Seo-jun quickly rushed in after her. Although her words left him utterly confused, he thought, who cares? Winning is the most important thing. He walked on, but the inside remained a silent, empty space, which was damn confusing. It's been 5 minutes and there's still nothing? What the hell is going on? Swish! A piercing, horrifying sound echoed out. Less than a second later, a level 4 manticore with razor-sharp teeth appeared before him out of nowhere. A level 4 monster in a level 2 dungeon? Kim Seo-jun cursed under his breath. He powerfully swung his staff, charging forward and killing it in a single blow. Although it seemed quick, it was much slower than his usual clear time for a level 2 dungeon. Kim Seo-jun bolted towards the exit, assuming Sozon had already moved on to the second dungeon. He saw the captain and yelled, "There's a level 4 monster in there, so the match isn't fair. I want a rematch." But the man just coldly replied that it was impossible, because Sozon hadn't come out yet. Hearing this, Kim Seo-jun was extremely surprised. She had definitely been inside for quite a while now. Little did he know that inside, Sozon was about to face a monster far more terrifying. Memories of the past flooded her mind like a slow-motion film. Back then, So Young still had her brother. They were happy, playing and training together, though she always knew this brother of hers was a fool who believed in justice and goodness. Compared to her, he was incredibly naive. On that rainy night, she watched with her own eyes as her brother protected a complete stranger, and died for it. Her entire worldview shattered completely. She swore she would never live like her brother again, and her selfishness and hatred grew with each passing day. Kim Seo-jun waited and waited, and when she still didn't come out, he couldn't help but feel that something was strange. He knew that if this continued, that means I've already beaten you. But Kim Seo-jun still felt like something was off. He secretly guessed it wasn't an incident caused by a dungeon error, but by Seo-jun herself. Assistant Manager Kim yelled that the 2 mana measurement devices were acting very strangely. It was originally indicating level 3, but now it's become level 4. If the dungeon is malfunctioning like this, It means the mana is in chaos. The mana waves inside the dungeon are unstable, and the predicted index is changing. The consequences of this error should be low. But the dungeon's level suddenly rose. If there isn't enough time, the dungeon will explode, leaving devastating consequences. Kim Seo-jun knew that if he hesitated, Seo-jun would be in danger. With that, he immediately dashed inside the dungeon. In there, Seo-jun was writhing in pain from the wound caused by promote good and punish evil. The level 6 monster was roaring continuously before her eyes, making her unable to believe it. To think a monster this terrifying existed in the world. It was something that should only exist in books. Not right in front of her like this. Just as its sharp iron teeth lunged forward, Kim Seo-jun appeared in time to block it. He then trembled, trying to hold back its terrifying attacks. After temporarily fending it off, he ordered her to run quickly. It truly was a level 6 monster. It thrashed around ceaselessly, creating intense shockwaves that forced Kim Seo-jun to constantly dodge back and forth to draw its attention. Every attack it threw was insanely powerful, but he had already figured out its patterns. With that, he told himself to first avoid the fatal blows and then lure it away. But man proposes, God disposes. It suddenly plunged its sharp horns into his chest, causing fresh blood to spray everywhere. Kim Seo-jun was numb with pain, but he still tried to muster some strength to send it flying. Seeing Kim Seo-jun in such a miserable state because of her left So Ji-hyun utterly confused. They had no connection to each other, so why did he come here to help her? He just needed to join another dungeon raid and win, that's all. Guessing he must be doing this for money, Seo-jun furiously screamed, telling him to get out and that she wouldn't thank him or anything. But contrary to her harsh reaction, Kim Seo-jun just calmly told her that even though she was completely in the wrong, she had no reason to die. Because human life is the most precious thing. His courageous spirit and his gentle yet firm voice made her think of her older brother. Her kind, pitiful older brother from her past. The strength of that beast, compared to Kim Seo-jun, was like an egg being thrown at a rock. The speed it unleashed became more terrifying and shocking than ever. Suddenly, he remembered something his teacher taught him. Intuition belongs in the realm of thought. Just like that, his whole body trembled as if he'd realized something. That's it. I have to make intuition and thought become one. Also known as create the intuition of a transcendent. A light flashed in his eyes as he regained his spirit and clarity. And once again he charged, staff swinging, to fight it one-on-one. His entire body was engulfed in a roaring, stormy aura. Though getting injured was unavoidable, after a few clashes, he could sense where it would attack, as well as its every muscle movement. It kept attacking, and Kim Seo-jun just kept dodging with this momentum. He hoped he could hold on, until the professional hunters arrived. But as for Seo-yeon, he didn't know if she could last. Not when one of her arms had been mangled by its bite like that. There was no more time to hesitate. Kim Seo-jun poured all his strength into his body and unleashed a final attack with an aura that seemed to envelop the world. However, through his own instinct, he knew he couldn't possibly win against this overwhelming killing intent. Not with just the Herculean strength spearmanship skill. The two torrents of power collided, creating a massive, deafening explosion. Blood from the monster's body after that blow gushed out like a spring. Beside it, Kim Seo-jun stood gasping for breath, a sight Seo-jun couldn't believe with her own eyes. After dealing with the problem, Kim Seo-jun supported Seo-jun, trying to inch their way out of this place step by step. You're lucky to be alive. Even though I'm so injured, I'm about to freaking die. But Seo-jun was still talking tough, saying she wouldn't call Kim Seo-jun her savior. After the whole commotion, a vehicle finally arrived to take her to the hospital. The incident that occurred at the sweep competition, was gradually announced, and in a short time, it caused a massive uproar. Although there had been measurement errors in the past, never before had a monster of such a high rank appeared at a place like this. Naturally, public attention focused on the associations and the government. Kim Seo-jun's name, along with Dream Academy, skyrocketed in popularity. After all his hard work, Kim Seo-jun was now stuck in the hospital, feeling miserable because the competition's prize money was unexpectedly split in half. He was heartbroken over the money. He was on the verge of losing his mind, muttering non-stop. Then John came to visit him at the hospital and saw him crying like that all day. Suddenly, he learned that all the prize money was his, because Seo-jun had withdrawn herself from the competition. Not only that, including this latest competition, she also revealed many fraudulent acts she had committed in the past, and even exposed the cruel behavior of the Academy's director, Zaka, her father. This made Kim Seo-jun incredibly surprised. He couldn't believe she would do such a thing. Seo-jun still thought Seo-jun had some other plan, but unexpectedly she told him. Although her belief that Kim Seo-jun was wrong hadn't changed, it seemed she had also realized that she herself was wrong somewhere along the line. In any case, Kim Seo-jun had won the prize all by himself. On top of that, the prize money was tax-exempt, plus an extra 100 million from government incentives, which left his jaw on the floor. Meanwhile, Seo-jun's Dream Academy finally rose into the top 3 thanks to his victory this time. Having met the evaluation criteria, Kim Seo-jun could now explore 4-star dungeons. All this good news happening at once made everyone incredibly happy and full of anticipation. After the money problems were solved and he'd treated the whole group to a big meal, Kim Seo-jun returned to his bed and excitedly opened the training equipment shop on his phone to see if there was anything he could buy. First off, he had 4 billion won. But the Spear of Longinus was priced at 1 billion. It seemed that no matter how much he saved, it still wouldn't be enough for all his expenses. He sighed in frustration and decided he'd have to try and save up for some slightly cheaper equipment. He scrolled and scrolled through the screen, but after looking again and again, he felt that the Spear of Longinus was the best option. It would be a waste not to buy it now. Items worth hundreds of billions, but knockoffs like this only cost 1 to 2 billion. Even though it's not the real deal, it must have some uses. However, after thinking it over, Kim Seo-jun decided it was better to be cautious. Because the shop didn't provide much explanation about the items, he could only guess their effectiveness based on their mythological descriptions, nothing more. What could he do? He didn't have enough information to research all their myths. That's right. Kim Seo-jun had an idea. He would go to the Supreme Academy's student community to see if anyone had used things like this before. Suddenly, he came across a post sharing experiences using 100 different items, which made Kim Seo-jun's jaw drop in amazement. He scrolled down for a while. He then read that the spatial pouch was rated 10 out of 10, which made Kim Seo-jun immediately sit up and check the price. It was only 100 million won. In dungeons, he could use it to store monster corpses, and on quests, he wouldn't need to carry heavy loads. It seemed he had to buy it right away. 3 days later, Kim Seo-jun happily went out to test the new spear and the spatial pouch he had just bought, even though his bank account was now empty. But oh well, investing in himself was worth it. Suddenly, Seo-jun appeared. When she heard he had spent all 4 billion of his prize money, she screamed in shock. Then she looked over at Kim Seo-jun's shiny new equipment. She immediately understood the reason. A moment later, the two of them were in a pitch-black dungeon filled with terrifying, gloomy-looking monsters. Kim Seo-jun thought about the defense level of the monsters here. They were level 4, so he decided to take a gamble and test out his new weapon by swinging the spear at a gargoyle with high physical defense. It seemed like the perfect target to test the Spear of Longinus. Kim Seo-jun never expected that with just one swing, the monsters would be smashed into a soft pulp like tofu. He was just cutting through them left and right, easier than anything. After dicing them into pieces, Kim Seo-jun pulled out the spatial pouch and stuffed their parts inside in a flash, right under Seo-jun's astonished gaze. This made her extremely curious about where he had bought such incredible items. She listened as Kim Seo-jun dodged the question, claiming he bought them at a pawn shop for hunters near his house. This got Seo-jun excited, wanting to go there and check it out too. But then he told her the place had already moved. This made her completely deflate. Kim Seo-jun gave a forced laugh and scratched his head, feeling a little guilty for not being able to tell her the truth. Crack! A quiet but heavy sound shattered the atmosphere, bringing with it a sense of gloom and darkness that made them both freeze for a moment. Relying on his powerful spear, Kim Seo-jun decided to step forward and handle it for her. With his mountain-shattering strike skill covering the entire area, Kim Seo-jun performed a few basic moves, creating a whirlwind of immensely powerful energy streams that attacked the monsters in a terrifying matrix. In a flash, he had neatly wiped out their entire nest, leaving Seo-jun completely stunned. The legendary Holy Lance was rumored to be the spear that pierced Jesus Christ on the cross. Although Kim Seo-jun's Holy Lance was just a fake, the power it generated was nothing to be trifled with. It seemed those posts on the community site were reliable after all. With only 25 days left, Kim Seo-jun resolved that he had to try and earn enough money to finish listening to the new lecture. Suddenly, Seo-jun informed him that Jimin, Marting's disciple, aka a genius among geniuses, was here. Marting's disciple acknowledged that she wanted to see him, seemingly to ask about what happened last time. Kim Seo-jun heard this and was okay with it, agreeing to meet right away, which made Seo-jun happy as he was about to send a message to ask Jimin. But before they could set a date and time, she had already appeared behind Seo-jun at some point. The moment Jimin laid eyes on Kim Seo-jun for the first time, she couldn't help but scream in shock, and then she suddenly went into a frenzy, demanding to know where he got that thing from. After a whole lot of noisy bickering, she finally sat still, which was giving me, Kim Seo-jun, a bit of a headache. Seo-jun explained that although Jimin was old, she still looked so young. That was because she had always maintained her childhood appearance by using a trick to store memories in her body. Suddenly, Jimin aggressively demanded to know where Kim Seo-jun got that spatial bag from. Her thirsty, covetous gaze made him break out in a cold sweat. According to what she knew, this bag was clearly extremely dangerous. She then spouted a long stream of nonsense about twisted circuits and straight circuits. Listening to it was enough to make me feel like I was about to die. He then wondered how much more insanely she would react if he showed her long-used spear. In a firm tone, Jimin offered to buy his spatial bag for 100 billion, causing Kim Seo-jun to waver for a moment. He thought that with that 100 billion, he could buy back KBC and a few personal lectures, too. All of his worries would be solved, but in the end, he said he wouldn't sell it, leaving Jimin utterly disappointed. He sighed tiredly and gently handed the bag to Jimin for her to try. Her eyes shone like stars. Just as she put her hand inside, it was suddenly pulled back hard, making her jump and immediately throw it on the ground. Kim Seojun explained that only he could use it. Other than him, no one could touch it, let alone buy it. He thought Jimin would give up, but unexpectedly she became even more excited about his item. Her whole body seemed to go wild, losing all composure, wanting to know where he bought it. After hearing him say the store that sold it had closed, Jimin refused to give up and asked to study it for a fee. The moment money was mentioned, even someone as cool as me, Kim Seojun, had to agree immediately. Jimin jumped for joy. It was only now that she remembered the main reason she came here. It was about what happened in Kim Seojun's dungeon back then. After a while, once Kim Seojun had finished explaining everything that happened in that dungeon, he said that the reason he was able to defeat Natsura was all due to luck. It was all thanks to Teacher Merlin's mana from the lectures he had taken. Speaking of mana, Kim Seojun remembered that magic and aura were both derivatives of it and wanted to know how to use it, just like how an individual's will can relate to the laws of the world, because he felt that all dungeon glitches were like that. Hearing this, Jimin suddenly frowned, shot up from her seat, and wanted him to explain in more detail. Kim Seojun stated that if we assume magic and aura are errors that occur by exploiting mana, then dungeon glitches must be the same. His teacher, Merlin, also frequently talked about breaking the world's laws and an individual's will in his lectures. If he connected these two issues, he had a feeling that a dungeon glitch must be a phenomenon caused by someone's will. After rambling on for a bit, he saw Jimin still standing there, frozen like a statue. Kim Seojun thought he had said something wrong and awkwardly scratched his head, but he never expected that his formidable knowledge would make him a suspect in Jimin's eyes. She thought he was a cataclysmic magic scholar capable of creating spatial bags. How ironic. Jimin was so excited her eyes shone like headlights, her hand endlessly jotting down every word of Kim Seojun's explanation, which made him a bit embarrassed. He had only added his own thoughts to the knowledge he had learned from Merlin. He didn't expect her to react so strongly. It seemed the lectures from the Beyond Academy finally had a practical application. Suddenly, his genius brain thought about opening a class to teach this knowledge. However, it seemed that wasn't a very good idea, because to do that, you couldn't just follow what you heard in the lecture. You had to understand and apply the content of the lecture. Besides, who would learn that stuff? From someone like him who was still a student? Jimin softly spoke up, saying she still didn't quite understand the concept of magic science. She then became fired up with a desire to learn, wanting to research it more deeply. And just like that, she walked straight out the door, leaving Seojun and Kim Seojun looking on in confusion. He watched Jimin's enthusiastic figure run towards the lab and was at a bit of a loss for words. She was completely different from the image he had seen of her in the media. Thinking back, Kim Seojun realized that the disciples of the Sword Saint Kalina and the Magic Saint were all very hard people to meet, yet he had met all three. If things continued like this, who knows, maybe someday the great sage would seek him out too. After finishing his meal, Kim Seojun sat blankly in front of his phone screen, feeling that the lecture progress rate was still too low. Before his free pass expired, he still wanted to complete one more course. It seemed there was no other way than to earn money to recharge his free pass and increase the lecture progress. He stepped outside to find Seojun. He wanted to ask her about hiring more instructors and about the system and all that, but strangely, he got no reaction from her. He then walked over and gave a hard slap to the body of the bored-stiff Seojun, making her jump and snap back to her senses. It turned out Seojun was also worried about the plan to recruit new students. There were too many problems arising. Kim Seojun then asked her if there were any upcoming competitions, like the one at the academy last time, or the recent dungeon clearing competition. For instance, Seojun searched online, but he couldn't find any competition held before the 20th like he was asked to. There was only one mock exam held at Hangar. Muse was next month. The mock exam, just as its name implied, wasn't the real test, but a simulation of the professional hunter exam that was only held once a year. If you failed, you had to wait another whole year. That's why the pressure of this exam was immense. Therefore, all hunter training academies created simulation exams for their students to practice beforehand. Among them, Korea's top 3 academies, Hunter, Mew, Eli, and Gaon, organized mock exams on a very grand scale. The scores that students achieved in the mock exam were mostly the same as the scores they got in the actual professional hunter exam. That's why the prize money for the top-ranking students was also huge, enough for Kim Seojun to solve his issues with the lecture fees and money. He thought for a moment. If it was next month, that would also be when his free pass expired. He then scratched his head, feeling like he had no other choice but to go and check it out first. Late at night, Kim Seojun was listening to a lecture on his phone, when he suddenly heard an advertisement mentioning a mock exam for superhumans, which completely surprised him. This exam offered both a certificate and had passing standards just like the hunter exam. Passing it would be like achieving a level 5 immortal ascension or becoming a level 9 swordsman or something. That's seriously cool, but as exciting as that sounded, Kim Seojun knew he wasn't skilled enough to participate in this superhuman mock exam yet. With that, he tapped to continue the lecture, but strangely, every single instructor kept advising him to participate in that exam. It made his resolve waver. It seemed this mock exam was more important than he'd thought. Kim Seojun went on the forums to check out reviews from people who'd experienced it. He skimmed through a few comments from people in situations similar to his at the start, but whose learning speed had drastically increased after taking the exam. It got him all hyped up, and he decided to go big and give it a shot to see what happened. The next morning, he held his breath and pressed the Participate button on the screen. The rules and the events for various categories quickly appeared. The first test was combat ability. The atmosphere around Kim Seo-jun instantly changed after that first press of the button, leaving him a bit shocked. He couldn't believe the exam would happen this way. According to what it said, there were a total of 15 stages based on the superhuman standard. The first stage was around level 5 or 6. Each stage went up by 1 level, so by stage 15, it would be level 20. Just thinking about it made him a little nervous. While he was lost in thought, suddenly, swoosh, a giant dragon leaped out of his phone, relentlessly spewing poison and spitting silk, which scared the hell out of Kim Seo-jun. Huh? Hello? It's only stage 1 and I've already freaking failed! Kim Seo-jun couldn't believe his eyes. He rolled on the ground, crying out to the heavens. It was clearly just stage 1. But the system already used a dragon to measure combat power, and not just any normal dragon, but the destruction dragon. Fafnir, for crying out loud. Crying out. I mean, if stage 1 is like this, then by stage 15, I'll probably be fighting a god. After crying for a bit, Kim Seo-jun let out a long sigh and sat up, trying to regain his composure. In any case, he was lucky to still have 10 more chances after his first attempt. Although 10 tries wouldn't change much, Kim Seo-jun was still determined to risk it all. With that said, he picked up his battle spear and bravely strode forward into the fray. He looked so fierce. But after n number of failures, Kim Seo-jun only had 5 tries left. It made him so frustrated he could cry. How was he supposed to catch that thing? Kim Seo-jun realized that if he was still fuzzy on what a pro hunter was, then what the heck was this fake superhuman thing? Even though I have to do something to increase my lecture progress, it's over before I can even do anything, so there was no way for him to make any progress. Suddenly, a notification appeared on his phone screen, asking if he wanted to listen to a tutorial lecture for this. Although his evaluation score would be deducted, he immediately considered it. Seeing that there was even a lecture from his idol, the great sage Sun Wukong, Kim Seo-jun had no reason to pass up this opportunity. Quick as a flash, he pressed the Agree button. He revealed the secret to him. You just had to dodge its breath attack. Next, he performed a few special techniques while fighting the dragon and pointed out its weak spot. After a few flashy moves, he had dealt with Kim Seo-jun's entire problem as easily as the wind. It left him fucking speechless. Wait, was that the tutorial? Was that supposed to be the simple part? The concept of a tutorial at the Superhuman Academy seems different from the norm, sheesh. He watched it over and over, but was still at a loss as to how he could possibly copy that. It was like, just apply the formula and you'll get the answer. But the answer was to go home. Suddenly, he noticed the name Sigurd in the list of instructors, a hero from Norse mythology. He was both the wielder of the famous sword Balmung and the first dragon slayer, a.k.a. the one who understands Fafnir the best. He couldn't help but click to watch. He said that you just need to avoid its breath. Hearing this, Kim Seo-jun was about to dejectedly turn it off when Sigurd suddenly said he would analyze its characteristics and show him 2 strategies, making Kim Seo-jun pause for a moment. He said the first thing is, Fafnir spits its breath as soon as it's summoned. So if you press the summon button and then run, the dragon will still spit its breath in that same direction. The key point here is to prepare a block of gold. Kim Seo-jun was still quite confused by this method, but he bought an ingot anyway, then continued with the lecture. Sigurd revealed that when you summon it, you should throw the block of gold right in front of Fafnir. It definitely won't spit its breath on the first go, because it's afraid the gold will disappear. Then suddenly, he stopped right at the crucial part. But the fact that they wanted the trainees to handle the rest themselves really made me, Kim Seo-jun, want to curse. Still, I had nothing to lose. I took a deep breath. Then, trembling, I pressed the retry button. In a flash, that dragon reappeared, roaring in front of me. I remembered the lecture from before, Kim Seo-jun, right at this moment. I swung my arm and threw the block of gold in front of it. Upon seeing the gold, the monster's eyes lit up and it snapped its mouth shut. All of its breath filled with killing intent. Also vanished with it, which made me a little happy. I was about to rush in, but unexpectedly, it discovered that this was just fake gold and roared even more fiercely than before. And Kim Seo-jun got totally wiped out. Are you freaking kidding me, guys? Just as expected, I failed miserably, left sprawling on the ground. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. A notification informed me that Karen's lecture progress had increased, leaving me momentarily stunned in disbelief. Kim Seo-jun dashed back and forth frantically, trying to dodge the dragon's relentless attacks. But the result was still a hard faceplant because it was just too fast. I tried to find an opening in its attacks, but it looked like that wasn't happening. Just as I was about to get pummeled, Kim Seo-jun had no other choice but to take a gold ingot from his bag and throw it past its face, making it stare wide-eyed. After confirming it was Joss paper gold, it roared ferociously and charged toward Kim Seo-jun, sending him running for his dear life. With that, I threw out countless gold ingots from all directions, which made the monster stare in stunned confusion. Kim Seo-jun seized this opportunity. He immediately channeled his power with his spear and struck with his special moves, mountain-splitting force and Kai convergent stance. With a loud crash, he unleashed a fierce blow that pierced through its thick hide. It looks like I succeeded this time, but it's not over till it's over. Don't count your chickens before they hatch, Kim Seo-jun. That monster took my blow without a single scratch or any damage whatsoever. It just went ahead and made short work of Kim Seo-jun, causing me to fail again. Well, the fact that the lecture progress rate increased a little was enough to satisfy Kim Seo-jun somewhat. Seeing that I still had 3 chances left, I eagerly jumped in for a fight. This living legend will keep on trying. Seo-jun lately was a little surprised that she hadn't seen me at the dungeon. Kim Seo-jun told her he was temporarily focusing on training by himself. I was a little worried. I wonder what she'd think if she saw me glued to my phone all day like this. Would she suspect anything? I've already failed the first course of this term. The course completion rate was increasing slower than I thought, so Kim Seo-jun decided it would be much better to try and finish the lecture and then apply it in actual combat. 3 days later, the second course began. Kim Seo-jun was a bit nervous, wondering what it would be like this time. After he finished preparing, a fireball that looked exactly like a Dragon Ball from Dragon Ball Z suddenly appeared before his eyes, surprising him a little. He was just chuckling when the system suddenly informed him that he needed to hold on to it while escaping from a pursuing monster. After reading that, Kim Seo-jun felt like he was going to faint. He gave a strained smile as he stared at the roaring monster before him. This is beginner-level stamina? Are you serious? After countless near-death experiences, Kim Seo-jun moved on to the third course, which was to defeat a sphinx while his 5 senses were inactive. He stared blankly at the sphinx, moaning something in front of him. The moment he opened his mouth, it sent him flying with a single smack. Next up was the fourth course, which required restraining the Pungasari's appetite. No matter how much power Kim Seo-jun used, he couldn't control its hunger, and he couldn't take it anymore, so he had to make a run for it. Then in the fifth course, after hearing the siren song, I successfully passed phase 1, which made me think it'd be a piece of cake. But then I heard Hehem's Requiem, and that divine voice of its made my ears bleed. After an extremely tough competition, Kim Seo-jun finally received his mock exam score, and it was more abysmal than ever. But in exchange, the lecture progress rate for his courses increased, so it seemed like he would be able to pass 2 courses soon. However, 3 days had already passed, but I still hadn't received any notification about selecting a new course, which made me extremely anxious. The time remaining on the free pass was only 5 days. I was so close to finishing the last course. Kim Seo-jun wondered if he should return to the dungeon immediately, because compared to waiting around indefinitely like this, going back would be much better. In his moment of confusion, the mentor kid, whom he hadn't seen in a while, suddenly appeared, startling him. It's been a while since I've seen the little guy. Kim Seo-jun was a bit surprised and spoke a little too loudly. He was almost discovered by Seo-jun, which flustered him, so he immediately grabbed the kid and ran straight outside. After a bunch of excuses, Kim Seo-jun was getting annoyed. Facing his fiery gaze, the mentor scratched his head and explained that he only came back after checking my profile, because my results were just that pathetic. Hearing this, Kim Seo-jun was stunned and froze up completely. The mentor said that at my current level, any advice he gave would be useless anyway. With that, he gently advised me to focus on listening to the 2 recommended lectures. Hearing this, Kim Seo-jun was so desperate he wanted to cry. The mentor's sincere advice left me without even the energy to get angry anymore. Hearing Kim Seo-jun say that during the time the mentor wasn't here, he had been listening to the lectures very diligently, he cheerfully took my phone to check. But the more he looked, the longer his face got. When he saw 4 lectures playing at the same time, Kim Seo-jun revealed that he had watched 4 lectures at once, which made the mentor horrified and unable to believe his eyes. And look at these insane stats achieved in just 3 months. It's enough to blow your mind. Oh my god, this is seriously unreal. Kim Seo-jun mentioned that he had also taken many speaking exams and then quietly wondered how he should choose his elective for the Transcendent exam. The mentor just told him he only needed to choose the subject he wanted. Trat noticed Kim Seo-jun still didn't have a Supreme Academy ID, which surprised him slightly. Guessing something was wrong, he said he would go see the headmaster to ask about it. He vanished as soon as he finished speaking, quick as the wind, before Kim Seo-jun could even call him back. Afterwards, he resumed practicing the mountain toppling force, his entire body and his beloved spear letting out heavy bursts of energy. A violent aura flared. Suddenly, a notification popped up on the screen, asking if Kim Seo-jun wanted to listen to the concluding lecture. He immediately clicked on it. With words of encouragement, moral support, and genuine advice, Instructor Hangvu's lecture on the mountain toppling force officially came to an end. As evening began to fall, Seo-jun saw him return and excitedly told him that applications for the previous Hunter mock exam had opened for a 1-week period, starting from today. After asking for his opinion, Kim Seo-jun happily and quickly helped him register. Kim Seo-jun thought to himself that although his score in the Transcendent mock exam was tragically awful, it was still a Transcendent exam. He'd probably do better in the Hunter exam. Besides, he was extremely confident. He had obtained the power of the mountain toppling force and even had Longinus's spear. After fiddling around for a moment, Seo-jun finished registering for him. She said the exam would take place in 20 days. She then heard him ask about admissions, which made her a bit dejected. I wonder what kind of trick that old man Park Min-chun is planning to pull this time. But he was her grandfather, after all. What Seojan was most worried about right now was which instructor to invite, because each field required a dedicated instructor, and she couldn't just invite anyone, and inviting someone famous would be expensive. Hearing this, Kim Seojun became a little interested. Then he heard Seojan say that the salary for a top-tier instructor could be up to several billion. The greed started boiling in his veins. Just like that, his excitement shot through the roof, and he wanted to volunteer to help Seojan, which left her a bit confused. 3 days later, Seojun was overjoyed to see that he had completed all of Hangvu's lectures. As for Karen's lecture, it was a bit of a shame, but his free pass was still valid, so it seemed okay. Suddenly, the mentor appeared again. It heard that he had finished a course, while it was away and was so shocked its jaw dropped. Speaking of asking about Kim Seojun's situation, the mentor remembered. It suddenly exclaimed that something big had happened, and it looked quite urgent. The mentor said this wasn't a system error. The truth was, the Supreme Academy had no information about him at all, which left Kim Seojun stunned. Huh? Wait a minute, he yelled. If I'm not a member of the Academy, then how the hell have I been able to take lectures from you guys all this time? Because they operate completely on a membership system. The mentor added that the headmaster had also received a direct report 2 days ago, but didn't know the specifics of the situation either. Although Kim Seojun didn't know who the headmaster was, it seemed that person was an existence of great power, not someone just anyone could know about. The Supreme Academy's system didn't seem to have any errors either, unless causality had been altered. But causality should not change under any circumstances. According to the headmaster, it seems there were traces of someone's undiscovered interference. The more Kim Seojun listened, the more he worried he would be expelled. Seeing this, the mentor cheerfully reassured him, "You'll be fine. Because the problem is on our end, not yours. Once a member, always a member." Hearing this, he felt a little relieved. Kim Seojun couldn't believe someone had interfered in this matter. He guessed that someone might have deliberately caused this for a specific purpose. He felt that he was just an ordinary person with a dream of becoming a hunter, living a normal life, day in and day out. The mentor then said he should just continue training as usual for now. It then said it hoped he would understand, because recreating the ID was quite a difficult task. Putting that issue aside, Kim Seojun's free pass only had 2 days left, so he wanted some advice on what to do next. The mentor cleared its throat and explained that the curriculum at the Supreme Academy was divided into 4 main parts: introductory, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Kim Seojun was currently in the introductory stage. After completing the advanced level, one would reach a certain proficiency. From there, each person would have their own training method to suit them and achieve higher efficiency. The stage from advanced to transcendent is much more difficult than the stage from beginner to advanced. So it seems Kim Seojun still has a long way to go. With the mentor's help, Kim Seojun was shown 2 new lectures to solidify his foundation first. Other things could be learned after reaching the intermediate level. The mentor's determined demeanor made it impossible for him not to trust it. The moment he clicked register, the tuition fee jumped to 2 billion, making Kim Seojun's face go pale. Then he heard the mentor advise him to regularly collect causality, which made him a little curious. He didn't know what it was. The mentor explained that it was simply status. Just like it meeting him here and now, that is causality. It then said that later, when he studied at a higher level, he would understand what these words meant. In addition, the mentor revealed that besides him, there were many other students at this academy. It was currently a place where 4 students had become transcendents. This is the largest number among all academies. Each academy has its own courses and unique mana characteristics, but everyone agrees that if you want to learn magic, you go to Eli Academy. If you want to learn weaponry, you go to Gaon. And if you want to know a bit of everything, you go to the Hunter Academy, which people often say has no specialty. That means it has no particular flaws, which just goes to show how famous the Hunter Academy is to have become one of the top 3 academies in Korea. And finally, the day of the mock exam to become a professional hunter, organized by the Hunter Academy, had arrived. Kim Seojun, mingling with the bustling crowd, also came with Seojan to participate today. This mock exam is a competition between the 4 departments, so the scale of the investment is on another level. The most outstanding person who takes first place will receive a scholarship worth 1 billion won. Kim Seojun had already calculated the money needed to buy a new free pass. It would be around 500 million. Although he had been diligently grinding in the dungeons, his savings didn't exceed 30 million won. So to get that much money, there was no other way than to get first place in the mock exam. The flames of ambition inside Kim Seojun blazed fiercely accordingly. After confirming everything, he went inside. He was a bit shocked by the sheer number of participants packed together. He quickly said goodbye to Seojan and hurried to get in line. Suddenly, a ruckus of curses and shouts rang out. The one making the crowd increasingly noisy was Kim Kang-cheon from the Hunter Academy. Because he was given priority and didn't have to line up, it made another guy feel it was unfair. He wouldn't stop cursing. The crowd, seeing Kim Kang-cheon's appearance here, began to whisper amongst themselves, "So the Hunter Academy sent him here. Looks like he's guaranteed to make it into the top 3. For a moment, Kim Seojun and he locked eyes. He looked at Kim Seojun for a moment before walking on, making Kim Seojun unable to help but be impressed by Kim Kang-cheon's overwhelming aura. He silently thought that he truly was a promising seed from the Hunter Academy. While he was engrossed in listening to everyone discuss who would win this time, a piercing scream demanding entry rang out. It made everyone turn their eyes in its direction. Before them was a kid, decked out with all sorts of dangling weapons, stubbornly demanding to enter without waiting in line. His arrogant attitude really made people's blood boil, cursing him under their breath. The whole hall was in an uproar again, noisy as a chaotic market. Kim Seo-jun broke out in a cold sweat. He silently realized that students from every single academy across the country were really here. Mixed in with that chaotic crowd was Park Jo-seok, a hunter apprentice studying at the second-ranked Hunter Academy. He was studying here for one reason only. Money makes the world go round. The annual tuition for the top 3 academies in Korea was easily in the hundreds of millions, so he had to grit his teeth and study at a second-ranked school to get a scholarship. Jo-seok decided it was better to be the tail of a dragon than the head of a snake. He was very pleased with today's mock exam because, thanks to Kim Seo-jun, the Hunter Min tryout, which consisted of 5 tests, didn't have a written exam. Among the tests to become a professional hunter, basic physical strength was the first category. The main evaluation factor was how many laps you could run. After 15 laps with people collapsing left and right, the only ones left on the field were him and Kim. Seo-jun over there. All I have to do is beat him. All I have to do is pass him. Jo-seok thought this as he panted like an ox and ran his heart out. But who would have known that at the last minute, the first person to cross the finish line would be Kim Seo-jun? After that, he even put on a sick top-tier performance lifting weights. He totally broke the game, leaving everyone with their jaws on the floor. It's not as heavy as I thought. Even though I train my physical strength every day, there's no way it should be this easy, right? Could it be because I was able to instinctively use the mountain-toppling strength after completing Shang Yu's course? He wondered to himself if the mountain-toppling strength is already this powerful. I'm afraid after finishing the Hack Queen course, I'll probably become an absolute beast. The passionate fire inside Kim Seo-jun was burning hot as hell. Kim Kang-cheon, a student from one of the 3 largest hunter academies in Korea, was also here today. This time, he was here under his superior's orders, not to compete, but to monitor Kim Seo-jun's actions. What is this sudden request? Who is Kim Seo-jun? I think I heard that name about a month ago during that chaotic dungeon incident. As Kang-cheon walked and wondered, the results board was revealed amidst the excited murmurs of the crowd. Kang-cheon was stunned when he saw his score was lower than Kim Seo-jun's by a whole 11 points. On top of that, he was in 3rd place, not 2nd. Lee Min-jun. Who the heck is that? There's no way I wouldn't know the name of someone skilled enough to surpass me. This is the first time I've ever seen this name. Where did he crawl out from? After seeing the results, Kang-cheon instantly turned into a sad boy, telling himself that this couldn't continue. But then he remembered his superior's request. You don't need to do anything. Just observe Kim Seo-jun. Kang-cheon was lost in thought for a few seconds. The second test was mana usage. It was evaluated based on the number of attacks made on a shield-generating machine. So, the contestants had to try to use their mana optimally to break the shield. Kim Seo-jun wasn't very confident and nervously glanced at his opponents going up before him. Now it was Lee Do-eun's turn, the goddess of Eli Academy. She unleashed her firepower and in the blink of an eye, shattered the shield with a score of 100. Cool as a cucumber. Kim Seo-jun stood below, staring in full admiration, without blinking even once. Next, it was his turn. Kim Seo-jun told himself, well, might as well go big or go home. Swinging the scepter in his hand, he planned to just generate enough of Merlin's mana. But man proposes, God disposes. That one casual blow of his successfully sliced the shield in 2. Unleashing an overwhelming power that shot to the heavens, Kim Seo-jun climbed straight to the #1 spot under the dumbfounded and scornful gazes of the crowd below. So you were weak, huh? Not confident, were you? Even Kim Seo-jun himself couldn't believe he had actually done it. After that, the mana shield generator broke, so the competition had to be postponed. After all the ups and downs, the hunters from the 3 largest academies all reluctantly ranked behind Kim Seo-jun. The audience below whispered about how Kim Seo-jun was the one who resolved the chaotic dungeon incident before. He was also the one who single-handedly took down the level 6 Nakura. Park Seo-jun grew a little tense upon hearing this. She felt that if things continued like this, the placement test would be meaningless. She had no intention of letting him take the lead. With such an overwhelming gap, no one knew which direction this professional hunter competition would take. The fact that Kim Gang-cheo was left so far behind in this competition, it was extremely disappointing to his fans. They secretly felt that in the current situation, only Lee Ha-jun could stand against Kim Seo-jun. As for Kim Seo-jun, he was currently sitting in the waiting room, sighing with boredom, the holy lance in his hand. This was the holy spear that pierced Jesus when he was hung on the cross. Just from this spoken legend alone, it was enough to see that its power was no joke. The problem is, I need to know exactly what that power is. All I know is the story that's been passed down. Only that one story. And there are no further explanations. Does that mean Longinus's spear has the power to defeat mana shields? Or can it simply close the distance? I have no idea. Suddenly, something caught his eye. It was a strange kid with a bow and arrow on his shoulder, singing loudly. Kim Seo-jun suddenly remembered he was the weirdo who had caused trouble with the authorities on the way here. Seeing him staring, the boy cheerfully ran over to get acquainted. He was Lee Min-hyun, ranked number 2. Min-hyun's boisterous, talkative, and slightly chaotic energy left Kim Seo-jun speechless. Just then, the announcement for the upcoming dungeon raid test suddenly blared. Kim Seo-jun, head held high, defiantly stepped into the incredibly realistic virtual reality space. The monsters he needed to kill today were 10 Nakuras. Around him, a pack of beasts had already gathered, roaring loudly. "So noisy, it's giving me a headache." He casually swung his staff and gave them a few whacks. Each one of them immediately coughed up blood and dropped dead. That being said, their strength was nothing to scoff at, completely different from back then. Of course, these things are vastly different from a Nakura, but I also feel that I've changed a lot since then, too. As Kim Seo-jun deftly swung his staff, countering the beast's sharp claws, he thought about how just 3 months ago he was a nobody, busy struggling just to get by. To be precise, he was just an ordinary person trying to survive. But now, Kim Seo-jun had become a student at the Supreme Academy, met Seo-jan, and his life had changed. Although his journey to becoming superhuman was still full of obstacles, it wasn't too far off. After a sweaty battle, he successfully wiped out the pack of beasts, achieving a standard score of 100 points. Coming out of the dungeon, Kim Seo-jun, now at the top of the leaderboard, was stared down by the other contestants. It made sense. As long as I'm not disqualified or I don't surrender, I'll definitely win. I want to participate in a match where the winner is already decided, Kim Seo-jun thought gleefully, ignoring the murderous glares from his rivals around him. Silence is golden. Lee Min-hyun only managed to place 5th this time, but he looked as excited as if he had just won the grand prize in a lottery. Kim Gang-cheo only placed 3rd. Gang-cheo's cool and aloof demeanor caught Kim Seo-jun's attention. Only now did Kim Seo-jun realize that Min-hyun was a freelance contestant, meaning someone who didn't attend an academy and learned on their own. They're usually people with no money and no talent. It's extremely rare to find an outstanding individual among these contestants. For him to train on his own and beat the top seeds from the 3 major academies, he must be some kind of super talent, Kim Seo-jun thought. Actually, I have a teacher too, but he just doesn't know he has a student like me, Min-hyun said with a grin. Kim Seo-jun heard him but had no idea what he meant. Just as he was about to ask for details, a staff member from the competition approached and announced that an unexpected problem had occurred. Everyone immediately started murmuring and gathering to discuss the news. It turned out that the instructors chosen to be the judges for this competition had encountered a surprise dungeon and were unable to make it here. "We are currently holding an emergency meeting. We sincerely apologize. As soon as we have a result, we will inform everyone immediately." The staff member bowed apologetically. "This must be the works of the Justice Church. I'm not sure how they managed to create a 10-star dungeon, but if it's the Justice Church, they're more than capable. The problem is, this could cause the placement test to be canceled. If that happens, Kim Seo-jun will become the winner, and everything will end meaninglessly. I don't think the church went to all this trouble just to achieve this result," Gang-cheo thought worriedly. Finally, he suddenly suggested changing the exam format. "What if we have the students compete in one-on-one battles?" That makes sense in theory, but it would be very difficult to implement. The number of students participating in the Hunter Academy's placement test is huge. If we proceed with a one-on-one battle format, it would take a lot of time, and we don't have that much time. Furthermore, it would create problems with the scoring system, the staff member said, scratching his head. Gang-cheo refused to give up. "If you change the judges, they have to be at least A-rank hunters or higher. We can't just wait here forever. Then how about using an event format? It's not all the students. Only those who wanted to participate registered. The mock exam is being broadcast nationwide. It's being watched by the entire public, the association, and even government officials, because of the recent incident that interrupted the exam. Wouldn't this tarnish the image of the Hunter Academy? He must have come up with this plan on purpose. He's hoping for a one-on-one duel with Kim Seo-jun. If he wins, all the fame you've built up until now will become his. And if he loses, he'll still be known as the guy who fought Kim Seo-jun. It's a win-win situation." Everyone enthusiastically agreed. Only Kim Seo-jun pondered for a moment, but in the end, he caved for the money. And just like that, an emergency tournament was organized with 15 participants from different academies. News of the elite students from top academies competing against each other exploded across the mass media, and everyone was buzzing with discussion. The news sites were about to crash. Jongmin, Doeun, and Kang-cheo all shared the same burning desire, to defeat Kim Seo-jun. Talk about pressure, huh? Right now, Kim Seo-jun was sitting alone in the waiting room, lost in thought. He was busy thinking about the prize money he'd get if he won, on top of the winner's reward. If I win this whole event, then the total amount I can earn could reach 2 million won. If I get 2 billion, after subtracting the 500 million for the free pass, I'll have 1.5 billion left. The lectures that my mentor recommended to me cost 2 billion and 2.5 billion respectively. If so, I could take those lectures sooner than I thought. Of course, I have to win this event first. Actually, he wasn't worried about those 3, Dongmin, Doeun, and Kang-cheo. The one he was most worried about was Min-hyun. Sometimes people use auxiliary weapons, but I've never seen anyone use more than 3 types. Normally, people focus on mastering a single type to enhance their combat power and proficiency. But when I counted earlier, I think he had more than 8 different kinds of weapons. Could he really use all of them? The more he thought about it, the more confused he got. On the screen right now, a live broadcast of the match between Min Hyun and another contestant was playing. His fighting style was fast, brutal, and decisive, combining various weapons to keep his opponent guessing. This really caught Kim Sojun's attention. This was a free and unrestrained style, not bound by anything. People who aren't formally taught to become hunters all have their own very distinct fighting styles. Kim Sojun was the same. Min Hyun's fighting style is very similar to mine. Could he also be a student of the Ultimate Academy? Thinking back, what he said made a lot of sense. Because at the Ultimate Academy, you learn entirely through videos. The instructors have no idea who is watching their videos to learn. The more he thought, the more his speculation seemed plausible. The match on the screen ended with Min Hyun's victory. This final match was the one everyone was nervously waiting for. Lee Do-eun from Eli Academy and Kim Seo Jun from Dream Academy. The whole stadium roared as if it were about to collapse. Everyone held their breath, waiting to see this clash of titans. To say Lee Do-eun is a genius is no exaggeration, but perhaps genius isn't even enough. She is one of the 5 strongest students at Eli Academy, one of the top 3 academies in Korea. Her talent is recognized by Jong Jimin, the genius mage and magic scholar who is next in line for the title of Magic Master. In her life, the word impossible doesn't exist. Right now, her entire body was blazing with firepower as she stepped toward Kim Seo-jun. But unexpectedly, before she could even launch her first attack, he cut through her flames with a single swing of his hand in the blink of an eye. Lee Do-eun's jaw dropped. She couldn't believe it. A mage with overwhelming mana can dispel the magic of other mages, but that mage must completely understand the principles of how the spell works, and choose the exact right moment to dispel it. But he's not a mage. There's no way he could understand magic, and even if he did, there's no way he could have picked the perfect moment to break it. Do-eun's eyes widened in disbelief. Kim Seo-jun, meanwhile, was staring at the weapon in his hand, thinking it really was as powerful as the rumors said. Lee Do-eun was so angry she was speechless. Once again, she launched a fire attack, many times stronger than before. Kim Seo-jun's expression didn't change at all as his hands moved lightly and nimbly, deflecting each of her flames as easily as swatting flies. Even though Do-eun gritted her teeth and used all her strength to attack, Kim Seo-jun just kept nimbly dodging every single move. In the end, Do-eun had to collapse to the ground. She conceded defeat amidst the thunderous cheers from the crowd. The next match was between Min Hyun and Jong Min, with an unexpected outcome. The two were struggling in a deadlock. Min Hyun suddenly pulled a blade from his weapon pouch and threw it, scaring the daylights out of Jong Min. He then continued to pull out countless weapons from his person and throw them straight at his opponent. The speed and unpredictable trajectory of the weapons made it impossible for Dong Min to anticipate. While Dong Min was confused, Min Hyun landed a direct blow to his stomach, causing him to immediately collapse, unable to defend himself. This lawless fighting style of Min Hyun made Dong Min so furious he couldn't even speak. The audience below also felt his fighting style was strange, but they couldn't quite put their finger on why. Kim Seo-jun also watched Min Jun's victory on the TV screen. Even if Lee Min-jun hadn't used the tactic of constantly switching weapons to fight Dong Min, the result would have been the same, he thought decisively. Kang Cheo now understood that the Justice Guild's goal wasn't just to keep an eye on Kim Seo-jun, but also Lee Min-jun. The final goal of the Justice Guild is, through this mock exam, to make Kim Seo-jun and Lee Min-hyun fight each other. I don't need to interfere anymore. In any case, this tournament event has probably already succeeded. Could it be that Lee Min-hyun is a member of the Justice Guild? That's right. Otherwise, no matter how talented you are, you can't just teach yourself and expect to beat students from the top academies. Gang Cheol-jun thought the next match was between him and Kim Seo-jun. Gang Cheol-jun told himself that this time, he would definitely not let the church get what they want. They were turning him into a stepping stone for Kim Seo-jun to show off. Our two opponents rushed at each other with immeasurable strength. The surrounding area was instantly shrouded in a cloud of dust. The ground cracked into pieces. Gang Cheol-jun used a sword while Kim Seo-jun used a rod. Neither was willing to give an inch as they continued their brutal clash. After a while, a panting Gang Cheol-jun realized that Kim Seo-jun's weapon didn't seem to have any sword aura at all. But it was able to block all of his sword aura. No, it wasn't just blocking my sword aura. It was as if my sword aura had no effect on him whatsoever. That weapon looks like an ordinary iron bar, but it's not. It must be because of that weapon that he got such a high score in the mock exam. I just need to be careful of his weapon, because the difference in our actual strength isn't that much. With that thought, Gang Cheol-jun gritted his teeth and swung his sword with all his might towards Kim Seo-jun. He relentlessly pushed him, giving him no chance to counterattack. With his mind crazily set on the top spot, he didn't let up for a second. Kim Seo-jun was also a little surprised by Gang Cheol-jun's strength. Then, with a swoosh, Gang Cheol-jun continued to swing his sword, relentlessly slashing at the rocks around Kim Seo-jun, which completely stunned him. As expected of someone in the top 3 of the Hunter Academy. It's not just an empty title. In that case, I guess I have to go all out. Kim Seo-jun smirked as his entire body was suddenly enveloped in a dark aura, shocking Gang Cheol-jun. His jaw dropped as he watched Kim Seo-jun become visibly stronger, his presence completely changed. It was as fierce as an erupting volcano. Kim Seo-jun's powerful slashes flustered Gang Cheol-jun, and he was gradually pushed back. He was sweating bullets as he tried his best to fight back. But how could he counter those swift strikes, so fast that the path of the slashes couldn't even be seen? Compared to the advanced swordsmanship and mana training of the Hunter Academy, it was just a simple weapon swing. But how could he swing that weapon so effortlessly? Gang Cheol-jun was sent flying a whole 10 meters by Kim Seo-jun's blow. His mind went blank, speechless as he thought in agony. The blow sent Gang Cheol-jun into a daze, and he was briefly reminded of Lee Ha-jun. He had been defeated by her then, and she had thrown taunts at him that cut to the bone. Being defeated by Kim Seo-jun once again today made Gang Cheol-jun's blood boil with rage, and he swore to get his revenge. Nupakachi! A thunderous lightning strike descended. Fueled by the fire of hatred Gang Cheol-jun felt for Kim Seo-jun. A deafening explosion erupted from behind the hazy smoke. All the spectators' jaws dropped as they witnessed the sight of Gang Cheol-jun lying limp at Kim Seo-jun's feet. There was no longer any doubt. The one advancing to the final round was him. The entire stadium erupted in a shocked uproar. The final match between Kim Seo-jun and Min Hyun, which everyone had been waiting for, finally began. Seeing Min Hyun's hesitant expression, he revealed that he also knew the master he was studying under, which quite surprised Min Hyun. Or maybe he didn't. If Lee Min Hyun wasn't a guest student from the Supreme Academy, then I could just say it was a misunderstanding. But if he's like me, also a guest student from the Supreme Academy, then things will be completely different. Even if we're both guest students from the Supreme Academy, it doesn't mean he's on my side. On the contrary, I should treat him as a competitor. Right now, I can't predict how Lee Min Hyun will react. So I can't be too hasty, Kim Seo-jun thought to himself. He wanted to risk a fight with him. Seeing Min Hyun's suspicious look about Kim Seo-jun revealing that his master was a transcendent-level powerhouse, he made a proposition. The loser of this match, will have to answer one question from the winner. Amidst the cheers and roars of the crowd, a deal between Kim Seo-jun and Min Hyun was officially made. The final match officially began. However, both of them stood still like statues, causing the audience to look at each other in confusion. Both were busy being wary of their opponent, sweating buckets. With a swoosh, Min Hyun drew a sword from his back and lunged towards him. Min Hyun is holding a sword now, but considering Lee Min-jun's fighting style so far, I don't think it's as simple as just using a sword. From the very beginning, I have to go all out and find his weakness, Kim Seo-jun said as he swung his rod in response. A flash of light shot past, and Min Hyun's sword instantly shattered into pieces before his own horrified eyes. As quick as a flash, Min Hyun dropped his weapon and gradually retreated. While Kim Seo-jun was distracted, a shower of arrows suddenly rained down on his head. Kim Seo-jun quickly twirled his rod, using the force of the wind to blow all the arrows away. Min Hyun was utterly stunned and filled with admiration as he witnessed this display. That weapon you're using, I'm quite curious about it. If I win, you'll answer my question about that weapon, right? Kim Seo-jun, of course, agreed. But that's only if you win. They both burst out laughing and then continued to clash fiercely. Amidst Min Hyun's sword aura, Kim Seo-jun noticed a very strange feeling. In stark contrast to his willingness to use rule-bending tricks to win, he didn't seem to have any desire to win at all. Occasionally, taunts echoed from the crowd, but it seemed like he paid them no mind whatsoever. Kim Seo-jun couldn't understand what Min Hyun was thinking. Could it be that he didn't want to win against him? Min Hyun chuckled, saying he had also tried his best. No matter how others insult me, my value doesn't decrease. A boy with a lot of spirit, that's Min Hyun for you. Kim Seo-jun, also filled with fighting spirit, drew his staff, intending to show him a thing or two. Hearing Lee Min Hyun's words just now reminded him of Shakyamuni's teachings. This world has a rule of constant elimination. Therefore, we must be stronger than we were yesterday. Through those teachings, Kim Seo-jun suddenly thought about wanting to escape that world and see the world from a different perspective. There's an anecdote from when Shakyamuni, as a human named Gautama Siddhartha, had not yet joined the ranks of the Buddhas and was still continuing his spiritual practice. One day, Shakyamuni saw a group of children in a running race. For some reason, they raced many times. Each time, there was always one child who came in last. But for some reason, the smile never left his face. Shakyamuni was very curious, so he approached the boy and asked him, "Little boy, why do you run like that?" "Because I like it. But if you keep this up, what if the others catch up to you?" "My finish line and the finish line of others are different. How could they possibly catch up then?" "What is the finish line you see over there? There are other people standing there, so I'm not even sure if that's the finish line. To me, it's just a point I pass through." That boy continued to finish last. And later, during the biggest race held in my country, I heard that boy achieved an absolutely incredible result. At that time, I thought it was like building a tower. Putting in a little bit of effort at a time is building the self, building one's own life. So I repeated this arduous practice, to build a more perfect tower than before. But as I quietly listened to that boy's words, suddenly I had this thought, that the construction of that tower doesn't actually need to be completed. It's okay if it collapses. Why had I never once thought of it that way? Kim Seo-jun's society is a competitive one. If you don't strive every day, you'll be eliminated. Just falling behind means you'll disappear. It's survival of the fittest. The strong devour the weak. So every day he had to strive, thinking that by growing quickly he wouldn't be left behind. But the more he did so, the more anxious he became, and he realized he was obsessed with the Apex Academy. Kim Seo-jun was consumed by the obsession of having to strive to not be eliminated, to not be left behind, to not be surpassed by anyone in order to survive in this competition. It's all right. There are other people standing there, so I'm not even sure if that's the finish line. Even if others curse at me, my own value doesn't change. Every word, mixed with Min-hyun's face, appeared in Kim Seo-jun's mind. Only now did he clearly understand the words from Shakyamuni's sermon. Why have I never thought of it that way? If I use the Spear of Longinus, I can win easily. No matter what tricks Lee Min-hyun uses, I just need to break through them. My desire to win hasn't changed. Kim Seo-jun, filled with determination, gripped his weapon with both hands. He wanted to be the one to decide his own worth. Suddenly, seeing Kim Seo-jun burning with such fighting spirit took Min-hyun by surprise. The corner of his mouth curled into a slight smile as he spoke. Then he removed all the weapons he was carrying. Then he picked up a small knife, the weapon he was most confident with. Both of them were pumped up with adrenaline. Back at it, and even more formidable than before. In contrast to Kim Seo-jun's tense expression, Min-hyun seemed carefree, as if he were half playing, half fighting, but the speed of his attacks was like lightning. If that's the Spear of Longinus, each of its attacks poses a major threat to me. Moreover, it's really difficult to deal with these surprising and ever-changing attacks. Lee Min-hyun! Kim Seo-jun tensed up, trying with all his might to counter Min-hyun's attack. In an instant, he flicked his hand, causing Min-hyun to slip and fall far away. It's okay even if I lose, but for the sake of victory, I'll do my best. So this is how fun it is to fight? Kim Seo-jun smiled to himself. In front of him, Min-hyun once again charged forward, cutting through the wind. It's not over till it's over. He spun around for a moment, then suddenly vanished without a trace in a cloud of dust, leaving behind a completely bewildered Kim Seo-jun with this intense advanced concealment technique. Although it hasn't reached a perfect level yet, if I don't focus, he'll disappear from my sight in an instant. In any case, it seems Lee Min-hyun wants to settle this match with this move. Model, Kim Seo-jun thought to himself, planning to use Merlin's mana, but at that very moment, images of the opponents defeated by Min-chun suddenly flashed through Kim Seo-jun's mind. He realized that throughout his battles, he had been too rigid. The words of his teacher echoed in his ears. Learning many new things is wonderful, but learning forms habits. And those very habits become obstacles to expressing oneself. Because learning is absorbing what others express. Learning gives you the illusion that you are doing well. But in reality, you are just imitating others. You must not be satisfied with just learning. You must use your own methods. Learning must exist as a means to express yourself. Kim Seo-jun focused all his life force, combining Merlin's knowledge, Karen's senses, and Xiang Yu's mountain-toppling strength. In an instant, he unleashed a thunderous blow of his own creation. He brought it down, throwing heaven and earth into chaos. The people below couldn't believe their eyes. For a student to reach such a level, it was just absolutely insane. From within the brilliant light emanating from Kim Seo-jun, Min-hyun's figure gradually appeared behind his blade. I lost, Min-hyun said with a grin. The news that the final winner was Kim Seo-jun reached Kalia's ears. When she heard he had switched weapons at the last minute, her face darkened. She announced she would report this unexpected event to the apostles. Is there any reason for us to go this far? I know Kim Seo-jun is someone we should keep an eye on, but the Korean Association has already started a full-scale investigation into the appearance of the 10-star dungeon. Because of this, the plan we've been preparing for the past 15 years has been disrupted. I honestly don't understand why we're doing all of this. Just for that kid. The subordinate, Cancer, spoke with frustration, but she immediately snapped at him to shut up. She remembered how, a few days ago, her superior had threatened her, telling her to watch his every move. He used an apostle as a messenger to relay this supreme command. It made Kalia a little scared. Biting her nails, she trembled as she recalled someone else who could do the same thing. After the match, Park Seo-jun was somewhat speechless about his student. This kid is ridiculously strong, especially when you used Aura Blade, Kim Seo-jun. You looked just like a monster. Kim Seo-jun said that he needed to meet someone before going home. It was Min-hyun, who was now surrounded by countless academies like a top celebrity. Even though he lost to him in the final match, the mere fact that he was self-taught and didn't belong to any academy, yet had achieved such a level, was enough to attract attention. From the academy's perspective, anyone would covet him. A talent like that simply couldn't be missed. I see, Kim Seo-jun nodded to himself. But with that crowd sticking to him like glue, there's no way for me to talk to him privately. Suddenly, Min-hyun broke out of the crowd and ran to hide behind Kim Seo-jun, announcing that he would join the Dream Academy, causing another uproar. After a while, they managed to find a place to hide, escaping from the noisy academy scouts. Min-hyun said that what he said earlier was true. He wanted to attend the same academy as him. Kim Seo-jun froze, not knowing how to react. He knew that even if he strongly objected, Seo-Jan would probably not accept him into the academy, but he also didn't want to interfere in Seo-Jan's affairs in such an emotional way. We'll talk about that later. Do you remember our promise? Kim Seo-Jun asked. He wanted to know who the teacher Min-hyun had mentioned was. Who is he? Min-hyun, looking cool and collected, declared loudly that he had no idea either. Huh? Are you messing with me? Kim Seo-Jun was so angry he could feel smoke coming out of his ears as he stomped aggressively towards Min-hyun. It scared the daylights out of him. No, that's not it. I really don't know. When you used the dagger earlier, you said you were taught how to use it. Plus, you said your teacher was a transcendent-level master, and now you're telling me you don't know who your teacher is? Kim Seo-Jun furiously rattled off. No, because he never taught me anything. I learned everything by watching him. I've never been taught by anyone. Min-hyun replied calmly. Min-hyun was a self-taught student. It's common for people with no money or talent to want to become hunters. But Min-hyun's case was different. He had both talent and money, but he didn't want to be tied down by any academy. So he chose to study on his own. I trained alone, deep in the mountains. Although I had no one to guide me, I was quite satisfied because I didn't have to follow the suffocating curriculum of any academy. It went on like that until one day while I was training as usual, I suddenly sensed that someone had collapsed. That was my first encounter with my teacher. Min-hyun said that although the man was covered in bloody wounds, he refused to let Min-hyun carry him down the mountain. Seeing the urgency in his every word, he had to give up on the idea of taking him to a hospital. With no other choice, Min-hyun took care of the man in an abandoned house on the mountain. At first, his condition was so severe it was a miracle he didn't die instantly. But as time went on, he could feel the man was recovering. A month later, on his way back home, Min-hyun was startled to see a group of strangers surrounding that man in front of his house. Scared, he hid behind a tree to observe the situation. Just as he was about to be discovered, the old man, with his masterful sword strokes, lopped off all their heads in a flash. In all his life, it was the first time Min-hyun had witnessed someone with such incredible martial arts skills. After finishing them off, the old man loudly urged Min-hyun to leave this place and never come back. Before he could even recover from the shock, the old man vanished like the damn wind. Although he didn't know what was going on, his instincts told Min-hyun to listen to him. So, before leaving, he packed his belongings right then and there. He saw a manuscript that the old man had forgotten in his haste. I intended to return it to him if I ever got the chance to see him again, but I haven't seen him since. Min-hyun said with his head down that thanks to the manuscript, he had learned the weapon techniques written inside it. From the way he fought, I'm sure my master was the one who created the precious techniques written in the manuscript. But my master still doesn't know that I have his valuable records. Or that I've been learning his techniques, Min-hyun said shyly. I know there's a high chance he's lying, but he's no ordinary cadet from the academy, the Supreme Kim Seo-Jun thought. Min-hyun then added that the real reason he joined this trial exam was because he thought that in a competition this large, his master would be able to find him. After that, having listened from beginning to end, he finally spoke up and asked if the person Min-hyun called Master was actually the Black Saint. The Black Saint, like the Sword Saint, is one of South Korea's 5 symbolic heroes. Among the 5, he is the most mysterious. The Sword Saint's granddaughter also knew of this mysterious man. Kim Seo-Jun immediately asked her to help him ask the Sword Saint about the precious manuscript in Min-hyun's hands. Min-hyun, only now realizing that Seo-Jun was the Sword Saint's grandson, was struck speechless. The next day, Kim Seo-Jun was at home. He sighed about the money he had earned. It still wasn't enough to buy the equipment for his online course. He remembered what Lee Min-hyun said yesterday, that he'd return to the academy today so they could go see the Sword Saint together. Because of this, Kim Seo-Jun went online and bought a free pass. This move helped speed up his learning process on the system, allowing him to complete Karen's class in the blink of an eye. But after all was said and done, Kim Seo-Jun still didn't feel a damn thing change in his body. When I finished Xiang Yu's class, I could feel the platinum power flowing through me, but this time there was nothing like that. According to the martial arts stories I've seen, transformation is supposed to be like twisting and rearranging your bones, or maybe purifying the impurities from your body. It's a bit of a shame, but since I've already finished it, I guess that's that. Kim Seo-Jun scratched his head, consoling himself. Suddenly, a chill ran down his spine. It felt just like a cold blade was being held to his neck. A strange voice echoed faintly in the room, making Kim Seo-Jun jump, his face turning pale. He heard the person mention a tough opponent for that brat. Kim Seo-Jun immediately thought of who the owner of this voice was. It's the Black Saint. Who else could it be? While Kim Seo-Jun was freaking out over the Black Saint's sudden appearance, the man himself was quite impressed with his perceptiveness. No matter how I think about it, I never would have imagined you could detect my presence. I was wondering about that myself. It might be because of the transformation technique that Karen the Centaur just taught me. If that's the case, it feels more like a super sense than a simple transformation technique. Maybe this technique has some secondary abilities too. Kim Seo-Jun scratched his head, muttering to himself. The man heard him mention that Min-hyun didn't even know he was the Black Saint, or that he had intentionally left the sacred text for him, which made the Black Saint fume. It seems Min-hyun is on his way here now. He'll probably be here any minute, so why don't you go and say hello? Kim Seo-jun said. If I wanted to, I would have met that brat long ago. But I can't meet him right now. I couldn't from the beginning. That's the very reason I came to see you, the Black Saint replied. Since time was short, he got straight to the point. He wanted to know if Kim Seo-jun had any connection to the Justice Church. Because for a while now, I've been tracking the Justice Church. I don't trust those animals. Most people in the world see the Justice Church as heroes of humanity, the ones who put an end to the Great Deluge. But not everything you see and hear is the truth. You must know about the great beast bishop that the Justice Church is hunting, right? The Black Saint asked. It was through the Black Saint that Kim Seo-jun learned what happened that day. Bishop was never defeated. It was such a terrifying monster that people often referred to it as the Second Great Deluge. Hearing this firsthand, he was utterly astonished. If the Justice Church couldn't hunt Bishop, then why are they still considered the saviors of humanity? It's because they definitely did something to the monster. Or to be more precise, something was done to the monster Bishop, but it didn't die. At first, I thought that was just a vague, baseless theory of my own. But after a few years, based on several distinct incidents, I became certain. Have you ever wondered why the position of the Apostle of Purity is vacant? The Apostle of Purity suddenly vanished, in the exact same way the great beast Bishop vanished. The Black Saint gave a pained laugh. Just hearing it sounds completely illogical. The 7 apostles were a group that had been together for a very long time, and yet only the Apostle of Purity died of old age. The more Kim Seo-jun listened, the more insane it all sounded. I see a not-so-small similarity between these two disappearances. To expose the truth of these two cases, I have always been secretly tracking the Church of Justice, and as a result, I've concluded 2 things. First, those animals from the Church of Justice tried to take my life for daring to investigate them. And second, the recent 10-star dungeon subjugation event was just a conspiracy by the Church of Justice, and you are the reason behind this conspiracy. The moment the Dark Saint finished speaking, Kim Seo-jun was struck as if by lightning. He had no fucking clue what the hell the Church of Justice was doing or why the Dark Saint was revealing these secrets to him. He wanted to ask him to take care of Min-hyun in his place. If I could, I would have raised and taught the boy myself. However, as long as the Church of Justice is still lurking out there, it's impossible for me to raise the kid with my own hands. The Church of Justice has a special method for observing their targets, though I don't know exactly what that method is. But when their targets act, they can see the entire outcome of that action. That is also why those animals call this observation. I am one of the targets they watch most closely. Anyone who contacts or is related to me is also put on a watch list. That is why you must become the bridge between me and that kid. You are the only exception. The Church cannot observe you, so even if you and I meet, those bastards won't be able to sense anything out of the ordinary. At the same time, if I act through you as an intermediary, they will just assume you are the one performing the action, not me. I also don't know why they can't observe you. The Dark Saint's long speech made Kim Seo-jun's head spin. He wondered if somehow this was related to the reason why the Supreme Academy had no information on him. Before leaving, the Dark Saint gave Kim Seo-jun a book documenting the art of knife throwing and the art of stealth, asking him to pass it to Min-hyun. After saying that, he also gave him another book of magic arts. It was a gesture of thanks, but to his surprise, Kim Seo-jun seemed unwilling to accept it, which annoyed him a bit. This priceless treasure that so many coveted, Mao, was being flatly refused. Kim Seo-jun let out a mischievous laugh, stating that he only needed child support funds. The Dark Saint, one of the 5 heroes, was completely frozen stiff, being asked for money so bluntly for the first time in his life. Kim Seo-jun stood his ground. No money, no deal. This forced the Dark Saint to finally give in, and if he paid right now, he'd get a great promotional price of only $3 million. Kim Seo-jun, looking sharp and suave, cheerfully quoted the price. What a steal, what a promotion, right? Hearing that pile of zeros, the Dark Saint immediately lost his temper and cursed Kim Seo-jun's entire family. But he wasn't one to back down, immediately listing off a bunch of evidence, proving he was worthy of that $3 million. After listening to him ramble on for a while, the Dark Saint finally gave in and agreed to pay him that amount. After sealing the deal and settling the payment, the Dark Saint finally left Kim Seo-jun's house after warning him to watch Min-hyun's mouth for him. Just as the Dark Saint left, Min-hyun arrived at Kim Seo-jun's front door. After Kim Seo-jun revealed that his master was the Dark Saint, he was so fucking stunned he was speechless. Kim Seo-jun quickly handed Min-hyun the book, inwardly ecstatic at the thought of the payment about to land in his pocket. Hearing Min-hyun wonder why Kim Seo-jun wasn't keeping the book for himself, but giving it to him instead, he sniffled, not knowing where to begin his explanation. Well, how should I answer that? If I say these secret arts are useless to me, it's like disrespecting the Dark Saint, but even so, wouldn't I be able to find the Supreme Academy this way? Kim Seo-jun hesitated, not knowing what to say to Min-hyun. Suddenly, the boy shouted out, his eyes filled with faith and hope, asking to join the Hunter Academy with Kim Seo-jun. This left him utterly fucking speechless. Gaining a top-tier student like this made Seo-jun grin from ear to ear. Although Kim Seo-jun was quite surprised at first, he gradually realized this wasn't bad at all. I plan to train with the secret book that the Dark Saint gave me. Each time I'll receive a favor from him. I won't have to waste time looking for Minyo anymore. Wait a minute, doesn't that mean I'll be able to squeeze more money out of the Dark Saint if I keep hanging out with Minyo like this? He'll be my golden goose. Kim Seojun's eyes lit up. He couldn't stop his wicked grin, thinking about a future filled with dollars. Because the number of students had increased by 1, Seojun thought about having them all participate in team competitions. There are competitions that students from the same academy can join. Because there are so many participants, the prize money is also much bigger. If you and Min Hyun team up, I think you two could win those competitions. Of course, Kim Seojun was beyond excited. 3 days later, Kim Seojun felt a little regretful for spending $4 million just to buy a course where, from start to finish, some guy named Hack Queen was just panting and working out. Hack Queen was actually a student of Karen. After lecturing on a bunch of complex theories, he really showed Kim Seojun the power of his magnificent muscles. Hack Queen flexed slightly, and his entire musculature bulged. His lightning power increased along with his abundant, roaring muscles hot as an 18-year-old. This made it so Kim Seojun couldn't tear his eyes away from the screen. He was a bit dazed, wondering if he himself could ever become that fiery. The Daily Quest screen popped up, revealing an endless series of exercises requiring a weight of 1 ton or more, making Kim Seojun feel like he was about to pass out. What kind of monster is this? I thought my eyes were deceiving me. As for the leg exercise technique, Kim Seojun opened a lecture by Zhang Sanfeng, the grandmaster of the Wudong sword sect. He was also the creator of Tai Chi and the Tai Chi sword. Seeing for the first time a mortal who could use a technique to move as gracefully and lightly as the wind, he was utterly amazed. A daily quest notification then appeared with a ding. Maintain a constant speed of 300 kilometers per hour for 30 seconds. Fall from a height of 30 meters or more 20 times. Kim Seojun had to rub his eyes several times to make sure he wasn't reading it wrong. While he was still baffled, a voice called out from the doorway. It was Sucheon, Mr. Manchun's daughter. She'd come looking for him, saying she'd lost contact with her father. After hearing the situation, a surprised Kim Seojun guessed he was probably just drunk and sleeping it off somewhere. The thing is, I argued with Dad yesterday. I told him I want to become a professional hunter. I've had these powers for about a month now, so I told him I want to join a hunter academy instead of going to college. But he wouldn't agree, Suryeon mumbled. Well, it's true that you can make more money as a hunter these days. Having worked at a company for so long, I get it. Suryeon wants to get the job as soon as possible to help her dad, but what parent would ever want to put their child in danger? And we're talking about Mr. Manchun, too. He's heard his fair share of stories about hunters. I'm sure he didn't like that idea one bit, Kim Seojun thought to himself after comforting Suryeon and seeing her off. He immediately called Manchun, but there was no answer. Meanwhile, the members of the Kalia Church were growing anxious, unable to locate Kim. Seojun, no matter the cost, under no circumstances can the breach of a 10-star dungeon be revealed. She bit her nails, her eyes wide as she spoke to her subordinate. Meanwhile, during Kim Seojun's training session that day, the system required him to carry a weight of 1 ton to successfully complete the mission. It was enough to make him fucking depressed. If only I had known, I wouldn't have sold off those monster corpses. Luckily, I bought that kibi sit, though I never imagined I'd be using it for this, Kim Seojun thought, and then immediately used every ounce of his strength to pull the ridiculously heavy bag. Blood was rushing to his head, but the thing still wouldn't budge an inch. He collapsed to the ground, panting heavily, telling himself he had to boost his strength with mana to even have a chance. After a while of giving it his all, he reached a new, unparalleled position, which was getting crushed flat as a pancake by the bag. If Seojun hadn't saved him in time, this day next year would have been the first anniversary of his death. Oh, right. Ms. Seojun, this building is 15 meters high, isn't it? I want to jump off the roof, Kim Seojun said, cool as a cucumber. Before a stunned Seojun could even react, he had already gone off to conduct the experiment himself, by jumping the hell off the side. Seeing this, Seojun had to wonder if Kim Seojun had completely lost his damn mind. What will the new trainees think? If they see him like this, no. Will we even be able to recruit any more new trainees? She grew quite depressed, thinking about the dark future ahead. Even Min Hyun, who had just stepped out for a moment, came back to a sight that made his face darken. Right now, Kim Seojun was extremely worried. It had been 4 days and he still couldn't get in touch with Mr. Manchun. In the 15 years he'd known the man, this had never happened. He was sure something was wrong. Without a second thought, he shot to his feet. He announced he was going out to find Manchun himself. When he arrived at the construction site, he was bombarded with so much praise and admiration from the workers, it made his head spin. After some initial pleasantries, he got straight to the point. But strangely, no one there had seen Manchun recently either. Didn't he disappear after he went off with that guy? About 3 or 4 days ago, a stranger showed up. He came to our monster transport company. Wasn't Manchun the one who dealt with him? He offered a very attractive payment. I guess it seems suspicious because the guy made a personal request instead of going through the company's official channels. Usually, that means the job is either extremely dangerous or illegal. Manchun might have been desperate for money to cover his daughter's tuition or something, a man at the workshop said. Hearing this, Kim Seojun's heart skipped a beat. He rushed back to the company to ask for information, but the staff there refused. They wouldn't disclose client information. The policy doesn't change even if someone is missing. Having lost all hope, Kim Seo-jun could only go and sit dejectedly in a park. Even though there was no concrete proof that Mr. Manchun was missing, he felt a deep sense of dread. Mr. Manchun had been with him through thick and thin for ages. When he lost 9 years' worth of savings after the accident, Mr. Manchun comforted him and took care of him. Even though he wasn't wealthy himself, he gave him 3 million won without a moment's hesitation. Kim Seo-jun used that money to pay his tuition at the Apex Academy. That's the only reason he'd made it this far. He gritted his teeth, telling himself he couldn't just sit by and do nothing. Suddenly, Kim Seo-jun snatched up his phone and called Seo-jan, asking her to help him meet the Sword Saint immediately. But when he finally met the man, he proposed a duel. Seo-jan and the others stared with their jaws dropped, thinking his grief had driven him insane. If I win, I want you to intervene in this incident directly. Not just offer assistance. On the other hand, if I lose, I will drop out of the academy. I know I can't defeat you in a fair fight. That much is obvious. So if I can land even a single scratch on you, I ask that you consider it my victory, Kim Seo-jun said calmly. He knew something must have happened to Manchun after he met that suspicious man, and the company's refusal to provide any information only confirmed it. That's classified information, but it's a different story if the one asking is the Sword Saint, one of the 5 great heroes representing Korea. It's truly a gamble, but this might be the only way I can save him. The Sword Saint, Manchun, thought for a moment, and then immediately agreed. He turned and went into a small room, gently and lovingly pulling out the sword that was carefully stored inside. Legend says that when Kim Yusin, a great general of the Silla Kingdom, was still training on Mount Wario, he received a treasured weapon, a divine sword, along with a book of military strategy. And after that, he achieved a resounding victory. Even though this is just a replica of the true Azure Dragon Sword, it is still a masterpiece created by the greatest blacksmith in Korea. There's only one situation where the Sword Saint uses the Azure Dragon Sword, when he has decided to kill his opponent. The secretary, his face pale, was about to step forward to stop him, but he was stopped by the Sword Saint. I'm sure he wouldn't dare challenge me with mere determination alone. So I should at least entertain him seriously, shouldn't I? Outside, a frightened Seo-jan was trying to stop Kim Seo-jun. Please, stop! I'm a man of my word. I want to put an end to all these mysterious things that have to do with me. I still don't have enough power or authority to protect the people around me. That's why, if anyone connected to Kim Seo-jun is targeted, the Sword Saint will act directly. I need to drag the Sword Saint into this. I need to engrave this conviction into everyone's mind, Kim Seo-jun thought. His confident eyes, determined to win this fight, even moved Seo-jan. The official duel began with fiery spirits on both sides. The Sword Saint wasted no more time, quickly drawing the Azure Dragon Sword from its sheath after letting him have the first move. He immediately put all his strength into swinging his club forward, but all his efforts were extinguished in an instant by the Azure Dragon Sword. The tempest of power that surged from that sword made it hard for Kim Seo-jun to even breathe, but just then, the club in his hand suddenly lit up and shot towards the Sword Saint with a whoosh. The Sword Saint, of course, was no pushover and coldly parried it. He's getting serious now. Every one of his attacks, every movement, feels like it could be the finishing blow. Kim Seo-jun broke out in a cold sweat as he assessed the situation. The Sword Saint's strikes, brimming with killing intent, danced relentlessly in the air. Kim Seo-jun strained with all his might, trying to defend against this unparalleled genius of the sword. The Sword Saint unleashed a flurry of strikes at Kim Seo-jun without letting up. This little brat! Just a few months ago, he was still a snot-nosed kid who was wet behind the ears. Although I could sense this brat's potential from our last encounter, he was still only remarkable for a student's level. But what I'm witnessing right now, with every passing moment, this kid is managing to grow stronger, the Sword Saint thought in amazement. Kim Seo-jun was busy parrying his attacks when the man unleashed a wave of aura so fast he barely had time to react. The weapon in his hands intrigued the Sword Saint, as it was still holding up well against the earth-shattering storm of attacks just now. This match should have been over long ago. If it weren't for that weapon, I wouldn't have even intended to use my full strength. Perhaps I should put a little more effort into this, shouldn't I? He thought to himself. With that, he once again launched a wave of sharp energy. Oh God, that brought Kim Seo-jun to his knees. Damn it! I was too arrogant. I really thought I could do this. Just because I defeated a few other promising students. But in the end, students are still just students. They're still green, inexperienced, and haven't faced the cruelty of the world. I failed to see that truth. I can feel the difference between the Sword Saint and myself. And it's frustrating that he's still not even going all out. Powerless and in pain, Kim Seo-jun blamed himself as another one of his club's energy strikes fell upon the Azure Dragon Sword. How could you even think of challenging me when this is all you have? The Sword Saint said, staring him down, his hands never ceasing their continuous attacks. I admire the Sword Saint. I want to be like him. I admire his strength, but more than that, I admire the way he worked to achieve that strength. I was too confident in my hollow title of Transcendent and unconsciously looked down on the Sword Saint. I'm still weaker than him, much weaker. But someday, I will reach a new peak, even higher than his. I want to surpass him. A living legend, Kim Seo-jun refused to give up, continuously parrying even while getting his ass handed to him by the Sword Saint. Suddenly, for a brief moment, he felt the weapons in his hands become weightless. Each step he took forward felt indescribable. As he stood there dazed, with a shing, the tip of the Sword Saint's blade slashed diagonally across Kim Seo-jun's body. Covered in blood, he collapsed in agony. "That promise. I hope you don't go back on your word," Jun managed to say with his last bit of strength to the Sword Saint before passing out completely. Covered in blood, he collapsed in agony. "That promise. I pray you won't go back on your word," Jun gasped out to the Sword Saint, using the last of his strength before succumbing completely. Mansion and that mysterious man, they're currently trapped in some cave. But even in this dire situation, he's still optimistic, certain that Kim Seo-jun will come to his rescue. He believes that if it's him, no matter how tough things get, Mansion is convinced he can solve anything. After getting beaten to a pulp by the Sword Saint, Kim Seo-jun finally jolts awake. Just then, the door suddenly flies open and the Sword Saint strolls in with his chin held high. Without a word, he tosses him the Azure Dragon Sword, that family heirloom, leaving everyone completely stunned and speechless. "Quit your yapping. I'm just keeping a promise. With that sword as a sign, everyone in the association will know what to do. I'd rather let you do what you want than have to deal with it myself, so get it done right," the Sword Saint said. To think he'd actually hand over such an incredible top-tier sword to Kim Seo-jun. The Professional Hunters Association is a government agency that manages and supervises the local hunters. It is also a for-profit organization established by professional hunters to serve their own interests. Before Kim Seo-jun now stands Lee Ta-bum, the chairman of the Hunters Association. He's all smiles on the outside, but inside, a storm is raging that no one can see, especially when Kim Seo-jun suddenly shows up with the Azure Dragon Sword. Just 3 days ago, the Black Saint had stormed in to see Ta-bum, demanding he immediately transfer 3 billion won to Kim Seo-jun. And now the man himself is here in person. This is really not good at all. 4 days ago, a man named Seok Mansion went missing after entering a dungeon at someone's request. Since it's mandatory to inform the association before entering any dungeon, please tell me which one he entered and who he was with, Kim Seo-jun asked in a level voice. Hearing this, Ta-bum hesitated. His superiors had ordered him not to disclose that information to anyone. To stall for time, Ta-bum asked to verify whether this Azure Dragon Sword of yours is real or fake first. "If something happens because of this delay, are you prepared to take responsibility?" Kim Seo-jun retorted. Ta-bum, head in his hands, didn't know what else to do. He had to reveal that the Law Saint was investigating the 10-star dungeon break. At my request, he recently found a lead and went to a 6-star dungeon to investigate secretly. Wait a minute. Didn't the Black Saint say the Church of Justice was behind the sabotage of the 10-star dungeon? Something about this feels off. Feeling that this was highly suspicious, Kim Seo-jun stood up to leave. But just before he walked out the door, he turned back slightly and asked Ta-bum if he could use the Azure Dragon Sword as collateral for a loan from the association. A little later, a frantic Shujin called, asking Kim Seo-jun about her father. He calmly tried to reassure her, but Shujin couldn't help but panic when she heard her dad was trapped in a dungeon somewhere. Her mother died 11 years ago during a dungeon break. She sacrificed her own life to save her, and Shujin doesn't want monsters to take anyone precious from her ever again. That's the reason she wants to become a hunter. Kim Seo-jun gently reassured her again, then hung up. According to the association chairman, the Law Saint and Mansion had entered a dungeon with 6-star Triad monsters. Even though the Law Saint is old and frail now, he's still one of the 5 most powerful hunters. There has to be a reason they got trapped in a mere 6-star dungeon. It was probably a trap set by the Church of Justice to get rid of the Law Saint. In a situation like this, no one can help them but me. As Kim Seo-jun's mind raced, his phone suddenly chimed. It was a transfer notification from the Korean Hunters Association. Holy crap, that's amazing. I just used the Azure Dragon Sword as collateral, and I can't believe those guys actually agreed to the loan. Considering the sword's value, this is an absolute steal. This should be more than enough to buy the gear I need. I'm about to head into a place that even the Law Saint couldn't escape from, so I have to be perfectly prepared. With cash on hand, Kim Seo-jun went on a carefree shopping spree. After choosing and buying a weapon called Gungnir, he immediately set off for the Triet dungeon. Even though they're only 6-star monsters, hunting them is extremely difficult because they look just like ordinary trees. Kim Seo-jun didn't want to risk his life, but he couldn't pass up a chance to test his strength against them like this. He closed his eyes, circulating his inner energy. An indescribable alien sensation washed over him. Outwardly, it looked just like any other normal tree. But I also need to test the power of my new weapon. Kim Seo-jun took a deep breath, instantly drew his weapon, and hurled it straight at the tree. Just as the spear's tip was about to strike the trunk, it was suddenly deflected to the side. The Riat had actually dodged his attack, but it didn't stop there. It even used the force of the blow to fling the weapon right back at him. Its speed and destructive power were enough to make even Kim Seo-jun's eyes widen in astonishment. Gungnir, the spear Odin used to dismember Ymir, the first giant who created the 9 realms. After a fierce battle with the weapon, Kim Seo-jun successfully reduced the Riat monster to a withered, leafless stump. Look at this destructive power. It must have been forged from some incredible materials. Kim Seo-jun thought to himself as he tried to beckon Gungnir back with his hand. He had to focus all the mana in his body. just to get the weapon to return to its original position. The mana drain was on another level, leaving Kim Seo-jun completely exhausted and breathless. According to the legends, Gungnir is supposed to return automatically, but replicas always have their limitations. At my current level, I can only call it back once, but I'm sure the day will come when I can use this power freely. Until then, this ability, damn, like a disposable item. Good thing I pawned off the blue dragon sword. Kim Seo-jun chuckled to himself. After a few basic power strikes, he went deeper into the cave, continuing his search for Mansion. He was currently carrying the strange man on his back, desperately fleeing from the Gumias that were hot on his heels. As he ran, he slipped and fell with a thud. Trembling all over, he awaited the wrath of those monsters. Just then, the old man suddenly woke up and quickly used a temporary barrier to block their dark energy. "Leave me and run! I'll hold them off. I'm already an old man with one foot in the grave, if I hadn't brought you here in the first place." "This wouldn't have happened! Hurry and run!" he yelled at Mansion. After holding on for a while, he couldn't take it anymore and collapsed in pain. Mansion hugged him tightly, sobbing uncontrollably. His heart ached at the thought of Suryeon being without him in the future. Suddenly, a blinding light flashed. That figure. It was definitely Kim Seo-jun. "I've found you." After telling Mansion to stay there and watch over the magic sword, Kim Seo-jun immediately charged towards the Gumias to draw their attention to himself. One man versus the monsters. They lunged at each other in a flurry of fists and kicks. The sheer force of the impacts was insane. Holy crap. No matter how many times I cut it, its body just keeps regenerating. At this rate, I can't even get close to it. I'll throw a Gumlia spear to pierce its weak spot. Kim Seo-jun gritted his teeth, ran to create some distance, and quickly snatched a Gumlia spear lying discarded on the ground. But unfortunately, Manchun and the Sword Saint still hadn't managed to get clear of the area. Kim Seo-jun's face went pale with panic because this meant he couldn't throw the Gungnir. The beast grew more and more ferocious. It spewed out countless streams of dark energy, roaring and rushing like a massive flood, putting Kim Seo-jun in an increasingly tight spot. After noticing the other two had run far enough away, he took his chance and made a bold thrust with the Gungnir straight towards the monster. It roared in agony and then cracked into pieces, the force blasted out like a hurricane. This time, Kim Seo-jun was able to flexibly use his mana to call Gungnir back to his side. Looking cool and composed, Kim Seo-jun had successfully earned the admiration of the riots. Oh ho, look at that. They've learned how dangerous this thing is after getting hit a few times, huh? Kim Seo-jun said gleefully. Those tree monsters were now completely submitted to him, but it seemed they were all trying to stop him from picking up Gungnir. Kim Seo-jun could only hit them with a few basic attacks. What else could he do? A moment later, Mansion, carrying the Magic Saint, arrived at the meeting point. The Magic Saint's condition isn't very good right now. Time to use the emergency elixir I always carry with me. This is just an emergency measure, but it should help him feel better. Kim Seo-jun gently lifted the Magic Saint's head and poured the medicine into his mouth. The Magic Saint slowly regained consciousness and was a little surprised to see Kim Seo-jun there. "You really came here to save us? How did you know we were here? Wait, what about those riots?" Faced with the Magic Saint's barrage of questions, Kim Seo-jun cheerfully informed him that he'd taken care of everything. He wanted to know why the old man had brought Mansion to this place, to research the monsters. "I needed someone to move the corpses, and for a few personal reasons I needed to do it discreetly. But I couldn't do it alone in this old body of mine," the Magic Saint explained. "You did it secretly because you were afraid the Church of Justice would find out, right?" Those words from Kim Seo-jun struck a nerve. The Magic Saint's jaw dropped, wondering how he could possibly know about this. Suddenly, the ground began to shake violently, stunning everyone for a moment. The Magic Saint's face turned pale as he revealed that all of this was caused by that monster. For someone as skilled as him to be afraid proved that thing was no joke. The mountain before Kim Seo-jun suddenly split in two, transforming into a ferocious mutant monster. It's a mutant. Still, besides its size, it doesn't look too different from the riots I've met. "Let's try to stay out of its sight and escape this dungeon," Kim Seo-jun suggested. "I've already tried, but it's impossible. Somehow, whenever we tried to escape the dungeon, it would detect us and give chase immediately. This was how the Magic Saint had gotten so injured. That monster isn't just an ordinary mutant. Its shell is too hard for magic to penetrate, and even if I could break it, its regeneration speed is so fast that it recovers instantly. I even thought it might be an evolved monster that has eliminated the weaknesses of a Riat and enhanced its strengths," the Magic Saint said sorrowfully. He lamented that he was old, so he wasn't as strong as he used to be. Hearing him say that he was just one powerful blow short of being able to knock it out, Kim Seo-jun suddenly thought of a way. "So, while you're weakening it, I'll destroy its core." The Magic Saint reacted as if he'd been scalded, frantically worried that he wouldn't be able to hold out. "That's right. He only has the strength to talk thanks to my emergency elixir. It wouldn't be strange if he collapsed right now. Therefore, if we do this, we only have one shot," Kim Seo-jun thought. He suggested that he would be the one to draw its attention so the other two could get away. Seeing Kim Seo-jun's Gungnir up close for the first time, the Magic Saint's eyes widened in amazement. He was fired up and eager to carry out the plan with him. The time had come. Everyone immediately got into their fighting stances, preparing for an intense night of monster hunting. The plan is simple. Wait until it's weakened by the magic saint's sacred spell, then I'll pierce its core with this spear. Kim Seo-jun laid out the battle plan. First, he would lure it in and buy some time. The holy mage will pour all her power into casting a spell. Once it's weakened, I will destroy its core with Gungnir. However, there are two potential complications with this plan. First, I could die while luring it away. And second, it might attack the holy mage while she's casting instead of me. The first scenario won't happen as long as I perform well. But the second one, he thought with concern. Uncertain of the outcome, he admitted he'd have to leave it all to Mansion. The three of them cheerfully encouraged one another, steeling themselves for the brutal night to come.